Chapter 297. What do you think? Langya asked expectantly when he saw Gu Yu and the rest remaining silent. All right, then we won't participate in the battle. We'll take these treasures with us and wait for 15% of your resources, Gu Yu said with a smile. Wait, Langya suddenly spoke again. Dear guests, you can't take these treasures with you. But don't worry, we'll give you these treasures and 15% of the Sea King's resources after the battle. The cunning Langya obviously did not trust the players, so he voiced out his thoughts again. What do you mean? Gu Yu frowned. Dear guests, since I've expressed my sincerity, then this is the sincerity you should show me. I'll definitely give you a generous gift. However, it's only a verbal agreement, and we can go back on it any time. So, you can't take these treasures with you for now. Once the battle with the Sea King ends, these treasures and spiritual materials will not be missing. Langya's suggestion stunned the players. They obviously did not expect Langya to do this. Initially, the players planned to trick these treasures into their hands first, but it was obvious that this trick did not work on Langya. Dear guests, don't worry. I, Langya, have a high status in the Kowloon Ocean. I'll never lie to you. Langya added with a smile, as if he saw the dissatisfaction in Gu Yu and the rest. Upon hearing this, the players knew that Langya could not be tricked. It was unrealistic to fall out with him after getting the treasures and spiritual materials. Hence, Gu Yu and the rest gradually smiled as Langya looked at them with anticipation. Since they're not giving, then they'll rob them. Brothers, rob him. Following Lu Chai's roar in the regional voice chat, all the charging cannons that were aimed at the sea monster army fired. Boom, boom, boom. Langya was startled by the players' sudden attack. Dear guests, what's the meaning of this? What's the meaning of this? Robbery. Lu Chai sneered and smashed his right arm down, shattering the table formed by spiritual energy. Gu Yu and the others stood up. Dear guest, if you want the treasures, we can negotiate. Langya said anxiously as he saw this scene. F*CKU. Stop wasting time and stop talking nonsense. I'm telling you now, we're going to rob you. Following Lu Chai's roar, a spectacular scene appeared. Behind them, countless phantom battleship spirits appeared, and the scene was like a group of demons dancing in a frenzy. For a moment, the condensed aura shocked the sea beasts. Esteemed guest, I, Langya, will definitely fulfill my promise. Please believe me. Langya realized the severity of the situation and quickly said, trying to salvage the situation. However, Lu Chai and the others would not discuss anything with him. They were players, not negotiators. Since the conditions could not be met, they would use force. As players, they were so willful and hot-tempered. The battle had begun, and the huge fleet of battleships pushed forward, colliding with the sea beasts on the surface of the sea. This battle was going to come sooner or later. Since he had encountered it, he might as well fight. Seeing the player clan's attitude, Langya suddenly remembered what his subordinate had reported to him. The temperament of the players was hard to fathom. They would fight to the death with a single word of disagreement. Everyone fight back with me. At this moment, Langya's face was gloomy. However, in the face of an attack, he would not sit still and wait for his death. Immediately, the sea beast army began to fight back. Retreat. Following Lu Chai's words, other than Gu Yu, the rest of the guild members immediately turned back and leaped toward the battleships. Seeing this, Langya waved his right arm forward, and 3 streaks of light from his sharp claws suddenly slashed toward Lu Chai and the others. Since the battle had begun, he would naturally not hold back. Demon God. Gu Yu's eyes turned red, and his body suddenly expanded. Scarlet flames covered the surface of his body. Gu Yu, who had transformed into the demon god, was about to face Langya's attack and create an opportunity for the others to retreat. However, Lu Chai was one step ahead of him, and then crossed his right arm. Boom! The huge impact sent Lu Chai flying, but with the absolute defense of his right arm, he did not suffer any damage. Big Gu, let's go. Lu Chai immediately shouted in the live chat channel. Upon hearing this, Gu Yu took a deep look at Langya. The burning wings on his back flapped, and his body floated into the air, heading toward the myth realm warship. Where do you think you're going? After knowing that Gu Yu and the others were the leaders of this force, Lang Yu had the idea of capturing them to deter the player's army. Obviously, Lang Yu's strength was not comparable to Gu Yu's. He immediately caught up with Gu Yu, who was flying, but at this moment, Gu Yu suddenly turned around. Demonic God's stare. In the scarlet pupils, a ball of flame was constantly jumping. Lang Yu was caught off guard and was immediately hit. Suddenly, countless murmurs rang in his ears, and the past emerged. Those thoughts that made him sad, angry, depressed, and desperate all rushed into his mind. After all, this was the power of the demonic god. Even Lang Yu could not expel this thought from his mind for a while, and suddenly fell into endless pain. Tears flowed out of his eyes, and his body directly fell from the sky. Upon seeing this, Gu Yu gave him the middle finger, and then turned around and quickly flew toward the Myth Realm warship. When the leaders of the forces behind the Sea Beast army saw Lang Yu suddenly falling into the water, they were shocked. They immediately floated into the air and headed toward the place where Lang Yu fell into the water. After all, Lang Yu was now the leader of their alliance army. Naturally, they could not afford to make any mistakes at this stage. When they pulled Lang Yu out of the water, the leaders were dumbfounded. Lang Yu's face was full of sorrow, and tears were flowing out of his eyes. He looked very embarrassed. "Big brother, what happened to you?" The second island master of Lang Yu Island, Lang Fu, immediately grabbed Lang Yu's shoulder and shook him hard. However, at this moment, Lang Yu was still immersed in sorrow, and there was no sign of him waking up. Even his nose was flowing out of his tears. This scene made the leaders of the forces dumbfounded. Just when they did not know what to do, Lang Yu's body suddenly shook, and he expelled all the evil thoughts from his mind and woke up. Bastard! Lang Yu, who had recovered from the demonic stare, pushed away Lang Fu, who was still pressing his shoulder, stood up, and looked at the Myth Realm warship from afar. However, at this moment, Gu Yu smiled and waved at him from afar. Then he stomped his feet, and suddenly a golden lion appeared above the warship and let out a deafening roar at him. Gu Yu's demonstration really made Lang Yu furious, and he pointed at the player's army with his trembling body. "Since you guys don't know what's good for you, then let's fight." Although he was under great pressure since the player's warship fleet was really huge, Lang Yu could not care less at this moment. Since they had already bullied him, he naturally would not sit still and wait for his death. Next, the first battle between the player's army and the forces of the Kolong Ocean broke out. Initially, the forces of the Kolong Ocean were very anxious about this battle. However, after the official battle, they realized that the player's army was completely a paper tiger, and their actual combat power could not compete with them at all. This made them more excited as they fought, and the anxiety in Lang Yu's heart was also because of the pleasure of revenge. However, the players were very calm. They were already used to death, and they did not intend to win this battle. Therefore, the players specifically targeted the sea beasts that had treasures and spiritual materials in their mouths to kill. At this moment, the Kolong Ocean's alliance army was fighting to annihilate the player's army, and the player's army was fighting for their own interests. Both sides were very excited. Chapter 298. After a while, Tian Kuan suddenly said, "Sea King boss, all the best. We'll support you this time." Hei Sui and the others were the most worried because, unlike the Sea King, they couldn't afford to lose this battle. They wholeheartedly agreed with the Sea King's decision this time. They even hoped that the Sea King would take the initiative to ally with the player clan so that they could increase their chances of winning. The battle went on for the third hour. The player's army was completely surrounded by endless sea monsters. Lang Yu proposed to negotiate with the players again. Hei Sui and the others' eyes lit up. They were not happy about the annihilation of the player's army, but the meaning behind it. Were their corpses? Lang Yu immediately ordered the forces to retrieve the players' corpses and the warship wreckage. "Oh yeah, isn't the player clan under Yu Yao's rule? He just took over Beiki. Why didn't he consolidate his power? Why did he release the player clan?" Sha Shui couldn't help but interrupt. "It's not normal. It's not normal at all. This, Yu Yao is at the Ghost Emperor realm. Sha Shui was in disbelief. Xinmo Island, Sea King Palace. However, Lang Yu was sure that the players had physical bodies, so why did they disappear? Yu Yao was very humble at that time. He hoped for peace and not war. Although he had no idea what the players' intentions were, their actions made the Sea King a little uneasy. This was because this force of Beiki had never played by the rules. Whether they would become his support in the fight against the Langya Island Coalition army, or become a tumor that would kill the Mute Sea Nation, even the Sea King was not sure. Where the warship wreckage that was destroyed? However, his expression froze as he felt that something was wrong. The Sea King was puzzled. He opened it and found a line of words and an emoticon written in a crooked manner. From now on, station troops at the border of the Quelong Ocean and the Void Ocean. We must not let the players join the Sea King Navy. Lang Yu said with a gloomy face as he looked at the sea monsters' corpses floating on the sea. However, the players were already angry and wouldn't give up. They raised their middle fingers at the cunning Lang Yu, and the war broke out again. From Lang Yu's point of view, this fleet was obviously not all of the players' forces. There might be more powerful forces behind them. At this moment, the Sea King and the other lords, former kings, in the Sea King Palace were staring at the marked map of the Quelong Ocean on the table. Come on, Your Majesty, the players have arrived. I don't know if they're allies or not, but they had a battle with the allied army of Langya Island 3 days ago. In the end, they were completely wiped out. However, this battle also made the players realize how powerful the Quelong Alliance army was. Obviously, they were not on the same level as them. The hearts of everyone present trembled when they heard this. This was because the collapse of the negotiations with the player forces meant that more of their fleets would arrive. This battle that should have been a sure victory was now a variable. After all, the depth of the player army was still a mystery to them. The Sea King nodded. That's right. What Yi Yao wants is peace. If he was still His Excellency, he would never allow the player clan to lead their army to the Quelong Ocean, let alone initiate a war with the Langya Island Coalition army. In the 5th hour of the battle, only a few of the players' million warships were left, while the allied army's sea beasts were endless, as if they could never be killed off. The consequence of failure was the destruction of the entire country, becoming history in the River of Time. The lords nodded subconsciously when they heard this. After all, Yu Yao was a powerhouse in the Ghost Emperor realm. They had a deep impression of Yu Yao's easygoing attitude back then, but they could not help but sigh when they thought that he was gone just like that. Your Majesty, Langya and the others have realized that we want to use the Death Clan to wear down their strength. They obviously did not hold back in the following battles. Obviously, they intend to take us down in one go. He Sui pointed at the previous battle point on the map and said with a worried expression, they were definitely going to lose, but the players were not depressed because the soul coins and experience points were increasing. To the players, this was much more important than any victory. This was the actual benefit. Therefore, the players continued to resist tenaciously and launched a life-and-death battle with the Quelong Alliance army on the sea. All right, no matter what the player clan's purpose is, as long as they don't offend us at this stage, we must not take the initiative to become their enemy, the Sea King said after thinking for a while. However, the wreckage of the warship was made of spiritual materials and spiritual minds. How could it disappear? Why did they come? Are they enemies or friends? He Sui asked anxiously. In the end, the Alliance army began to retreat after their fruitless investigation. However, they left behind several forces to guard the area as a warning for the players' forces that might come later. Just as everyone was thinking about how to persuade the Sea King to let go of his hatred and join forces with the players, a soldier stationed in the outer palace hurried in and handed a letter to the Sea King. Just as the Sea King and the others were discussing how to arrange the defensive forces, Tian Kun rushed in from outside. Upon hearing this, the other lords fell into deep thought. Do you really think that Yu Yao can stop them? If I'm not mistaken, Yu Yao might be dead. A trace of determination flashed in the Sea King's eyes. At this moment, even Lang Yu was dumbfounded. The entire sea was filled with the corpses of sea beasts. It was extremely unbelievable that there was not even a single wreckage floating on the sea. At this moment, the other lords present nodded in realization. Then, their expressions became a little complicated. However, no matter how much they speculated and pondered, they still couldn't figure out the problem. Although it was rare for corpses to dissipate after death in the underworld, it still existed. After all, the creatures in the underworld were divided into physical bodies, bodies, and incorporeal bodies. When the last player's worship was destroyed, Langya still kept a straight face and didn't look happy at all. The members of the Alliance army, who found nothing, were also dumbfounded. So what if he's the Ghost Emperor? The player clan isn't as simple as you think. Think about it carefully. What was Yu Yao's attitude when he first came? What did he want? Everything seemed very strange to them. It's obviously unrealistic to rely on the Death Clan to start a war of attrition. In that case, let's accumulate the strength of the Death Clan and counterattack when it reaches a certain scale. For now, we should focus on defense, the Sea King said expressionlessly. Half an hour later, he clearly knew that it would be difficult to win this battle, but at least there was hope. Moreover, he had the Death Clan as his backing. Even if he lost, he could afford to lose because he had a way out. After all, they were at a great disadvantage at the moment. Although they knew that the Sea King and the player clan had an irreconcilable grudge, they still didn't want the Sea King to be impulsive and go against the players. Don't celebrate too early. The player clan isn't a kind people. Moreover, they wouldn't be so stupid as to attack the Langya Island Alliance army without a purpose. The Sea King couldn't help but pour cold water on the crowd. Langya really couldn't understand. He thought that the players were actually creatures with an incorporeal body, but they were actually bodies. This was the only way to explain why they disappeared after death. Most of the creatures that disappeared after death were incorporeal bodies, such as ghosts and a small number of bodies. Due to the structure of these creatures' bodies being related to the rules of the underworld, their bodies would be decomposed after death and integrated into nature. Chapter 299. The veins on the Sea King's forehead bulged when he saw the emoticon and the word player written at the bottom of the envelope. This should have been something to be happy about. At least the players were on his side. However, the ambiguous attitude of the players made the Sea King uncomfortable. It was an indescribable feeling, as if he was a beast being chased by a hunter. He was running with all his might, but the hunter was holding his gun and watching his struggle with a smile. He helped this time because he encountered a ferocious tiger while he was running. Seeing that his prey was about to die in the tiger's mouth, the hunter could not sit still and was ready to attack. Bang! The Sea King's face turned gloomy as he slammed his fist on the table. He felt uncomfortable no matter how he thought about it. It was the same the last time. When the forces of Langya Island provoked him, the players took the initiative to attack and gave him an inexplicable look before leaving. Now, it was the same when facing the Langya Island Coalition army. How could he believe that there was nothing fishy about this? What are they trying to do? Or what are they plotting? The Sea King fell in a deep thought as he glanced at the surprised feudal lords. Naraka, Blue Valley Ruins. A man was hiding in a precarious house that looked like it would collapse at any time. He was crawling on the ground. There was a 2-meter-wide piece of paper on the ground, filled with various formulas and design drafts. In front of him were all kinds of mechanical parts purchased from a shop. At the top of the huge design draft, there were 4 big words, the Fortress Project. While he was drawing, the man looked up at the rechargeable mech placed in the corner from time to time. Then he went back to designing. As the top scientist in the U.S. military, Tesla was full of disdain when he first came into contact with a product that was far beyond the real world. The reason why he entered the game was to see if this game with 100% realism was as amazing as others said. However, Tesla was soon shocked. Not only was the world's realism 100%, but he was also amazed by the mech settings here. After careful research, he found that these mechs were formed by the operation of the corresponding power parts during battle or movement. For example, when jumping with the most common left leg, the power and components of the mech's left leg would start to operate while the kinetic energy of the other parts of the body would not operate along with it. This was only one of the reasons. From all aspects, Tesla discovered that the mech in the game was shockingly exquisite and not a complete template at all. In order to find out the reason, Tesla simply dismantled his mech, and then he was dumbfounded. Apart from the mecha's core engine, which could not be disassembled, the interior of the mecha was actually pieced together by various mechanical parts of different sizes. Furthermore, every part was assembled perfectly, just enough to form a power transmission point. What kind of concept was this? If it was just a simple game, it could totally use a mech template with an empty shell inside. However, the mech in the game was actually a complete body. This was unbelievable to him. After all, he knew how much effort was required to research mechas, and this was just a game. From this point of view, Tesla even suspected that the research and development team behind the scenes of Battle Company were fully capable of building mechas in reality based on their understanding of mechas. Tesla, whose worldview was completely subverted, fell into a frenzy after a brief shock. This was because he wanted to understand the nature of this world, and even more so, he wanted to explore the mysteries inside the mech. After all of this was too unbelievable to him. Therefore, Tesla embarked on the path of seeking truth in the game. His serious personality made him want to find the bugs in this simulated world. After all, he was a materialist. He believed that even in such a realistic world, there would definitely be bugs. After all, this was just a game. As long as it was a game, there would definitely be bugs. He wanted to find bugs to prove what he thought. However, what made Tesla despair was that this world was too horrifying. It could be said that there was no place for him to research. He basically spent his days in torment of dying and waiting for his resurrection to cool down. In order to research properly, Tesla finally sought help from the American military, hoping that the military could provide him with a guarantee of safety for his research work in this world. In response to Tesla's request, the American military was willing but unable to do so. In the past few days, not only was the military base that they were planning to build destroyed, but the subsequent small strongholds were also uprooted one after another. The entire military could not gather their strength, let alone protect Tesla. In the face of such a situation, Tesla, who could only rely on himself, changed his way of thinking. He also recalled a bold and imaginative idea that he once had. Back when he was serving the American military, he had conceived an extremely powerful secret weapon when he was designing war weapons. It was a type of battle fortress whose body was pieced together by a variety of equipment and power sources. Usually, it was a huge battle mech, but after transformation, it could be laid flat into a battle fortress that occupied an area of 10 square meters. It had the ability to attack the air and ground, and was equipped with various intercepting missiles at the same time. It could be said to be a combination of attack and defense, and it was not an exaggeration to call it a mobile war machine. This idea was just an idea that he came up with in his spare time. He had never taken it seriously. After all, the amount of work required was too large, and it was difficult to achieve with the current technology. However, after opening the game shop, Tesla was shocked once again. At this moment, he even wondered if he was dreaming. Countless design drawings, the purchase of various new equipment, and the custom mech editing function that was hanging on the right side of the shop. All of these made Tesla's impossible dream possible. Moreover, as long as he had this mobile battle fortress, his safety in the future would not be a problem at all. Thus, this idea, which seemed extremely crazy even to Tesla himself, was officially put into action. However, before developing the battle fortress, he still lacked the most important thing, which was money. The various drawings in the shop were not cheap. If he had to kill monsters and save up soul coins by himself, it would be impossible for him to do so in this lifetime with his ability. Therefore, in order to purchase a large number of drawings and equipment for research, he could only apply for a research grant from the American military senior management. However, the grant was really difficult to approve. If it was not for his great value and the fact that he had played a key role in the American military's weapon development many times, the grant would definitely not have been approved. Even the senior management of the American military was shocked when they found out that Tesla was planning to apply for a $100 million grant. The military's highest-ranking officer personally called him to ask him what his idea was and if he was going to design some secret weapon. Tesla was dedicated to scientific research and did not have any ulterior motives. Without hiding anything, he confidently said that he wanted to use all the money to top up the game and buy soul coins from the players. At that time, the highest-ranking officer was dumbfounded and even suspected that he was not awake. After all, he knew Tesla very well. He was a complete research maniac who did not even care about sleeping and eating when he was so immersed in his research. However, at this moment, Tesla told him that he wanted to apply for a 100 million grant to play the game. This completely subverted his worldview and made him feel as if the world had changed. Originally, the grant would definitely not be approved. However, Tesla threatened over 20 ongoing important projects and said that he would go on strike if he was not given the money to top up the game. He also said that he was playing the game solely for scientific research and that the grant was non-negotiable. Tesla was a core existence in these important projects. His threat made the powerful American military choose to compromise. They could only allocate 100 million for Tesla to use in the game. After all, they knew Tesla's temper very well. Once he had set his mind on something, it was difficult to pull him back. Threats were even more useless. The reason why he joined the American military was that the American military could provide him with the huge consumption needed for his research and development. At this moment, the senior management of the American military felt extremely complicated. Chapter 300. This was undoubtedly the most difficult part. In order to complete the transformation, Tesla even invited many of his old friends from the military to discuss with them how to carry out the transformation. After receiving the funding from the U.S. military, Tesla's plan could finally be implemented. With the powerful function of a shopping mall, Tesla completed the prototype of the fortress plan in a very short period of time. The next step was to actually assemble the parts. This impossibly huge battle fortress slowly revealed its basic form. The feature of this core power source was the continuous high-frequency power transmission, which was exactly what Tesla wanted. Although the price was extremely high, Tesla bought it without hesitation. For this reason, Tesla started a live broadcast while the military's higher-ups were watching from the outside, occasionally expressing their opinions. In the end, because of his crazy actions, although he managed to gather enough soul coins for research and development, the soul coin market in Araka had almost doubled, and it could not fall back in a short period of time. This scene really shocked the players who were watching the live broadcast. Obviously, the fortress mech was far more powerful than they had imagined. However, this was only the foundation. Tesla's concept of the battle fortress was not complete. Next was the construction of the defense system. The installation of various defense barriers and defense weapons made the fortress mech look extremely ferocious, emitting a cold metallic luster. After running to a relatively empty area, the back of the fortress mech split open to reveal a launch port. A signal flare was suddenly shot out and exploded in the air. Then a shocking scene happened. Faced with this dilemma, Tesla could only increase the price of the soul coins in Naraka by a notch. After loading the core, Tesla and his old friend studied how to load the parts while reading the manual and continuously modifying it. Therefore, to completely perfect the fortress, Tesla, the mad scientist, was ready to upgrade and collect spiritual ores with the battle fortress. During the observation, the players also proposed their own ideas in the live broadcast. Although these ideas were difficult to put into practice, Tesla still recorded them for reference. Fortress War Mode. At this moment, the most powerful side of the fortress mech was officially revealed. Then, Tesla waited quietly. This mech basic manual was put up by Bei Li to let the players in Naraka understand the mech's performance better. It was priced at 10 soul coins, but only less than 10 copies have been sold so far. First, he drew his own rechargeable mech on the blueprint in an analytical manner. Next, he had to think about how to integrate the contents of the blueprint with his rechargeable mech. Note, the game chamber is in the nutrient mode, which is directly absorbed by the body. There will be no need to urinate. Chapter 301. In war mode, the mech turned into a battle fortress, unleashing violent firepower in all directions. With the fortress as the center, the 50-meter radius became a forbidden area for monsters. All creatures that entered this area would be torn apart by the merciless rain of bullets. At this time, the 3 high-powered cannons finished charging and shot out from the fortress, smashing into the group of monsters. Suddenly, the surroundings were shrouded in white light. With that area as the center, a strong shockwave sent all the surrounding monsters flying. Boom! 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 Flames dyed the sky. After a short pause, the fortress was fully activated again. In this state, the consumption of ammunition was extremely high. Tesla could only move ammunition boxes from the space and let the surrounding mechanical arms automatically take them and reload. This was the unlimited firepower mode that Tesla conceived. With the space to store ammunition, the automatic reloading of the mechanical arms, and the assistance of the cooling system, the fortress's firepower in battle mode would not stop. Mech load 60%. At this time, the voice prompt in the mech began to report the status of the mech. Increase firepower. Following Tesla's shout, the power system of the charging box operated at a high speed and began to charge the ammunition stored inside. Mech load 100%. The voice prompt appeared again. All the cannons and gun barrels began to turn red, gradually entering the overload state. The firepower and shooting speed increased at the same time. In this state, the 50-meter radius of the forbidden area began to slowly expand outwards. This scene left the players watching dumbfounded. They never thought that a player's modified mech could reach this level. Heaven's Beaker, Hell 666, I'm late. I want to know how he did it. Is this still a mech? Shock emoji, Prince Charming 123, Hell Pro, definitely a pro. 36 weapons of mass destruction combined into one mech. What AF asterisk King Genius. Purple Gem, hell damn, he's so strong. The upper right corner of the live stream shows that this player is only level 18. Why do I feel like he's level 118? Crayon underscore Shinchan. Tisk TSK TSK. Another pro in the server of Naraka. I'm really looking forward to the individual competition. Anyway, I can't participate. It's so interesting to watch you gods fight. Laughing emoji. Roasting underscore Jade underscore. While underscore hugging. I was shocked when I passed by. This is a godly weapon for farming monsters. If this continues, my soul coins will skyrocket. Norse God of Hammer. Hell, I didn't know that a mech modified by oneself could be so strong. I was wondering why there were so many designs in the shop. I'm so envious. Boss, please provide me with a modification plan. I want to modify it too. So envious. Crayon underscore Shinchan replied to Norse God of Hammer. Forget it. I just watched the replay. He didn't eat or drink for a month. And this player is definitely a tycoon. He spent at least hundreds of thousands of soul coins to do it. Can you do it? Laughing emoji. The battle fortress built by Tesla completely shocked all the players in the live streaming channel. At this moment, the players realized why there were so many design blueprints in the merchant shop. Obviously, as long as they had the ability, the mechs they created would definitely be more powerful than the starter mechs. Even the players who had been uninterested in the modification were tempted. It could be said that Tesla's actions had ignited the players' passion for modification. Some rich players in the live stream room even directly offered a price, hoping that Tesla could help them build a battle fortress. However, Tesla wasn't watching the live stream at the moment. Instead, he was constantly observing the parameters on the panel of the mech, recording them and using them for the next modification. After all, this mech fortress was only the preliminary form of his idea. What he really wanted was a mobile battle fortress that was like a small base. It was undoubtedly difficult to achieve that level. However, there were still a lot of design blueprints in the merchant shop that he hadn't purchased yet. He believed that as long as he kept going, this idea would definitely come true. However, looking at the crazy consumption of ammunition, Tesla was also a little embarrassed. He was using soul coins, and the consumption rate was making him feel a little pain. After all, the military wouldn't give him any more funds. Fortunately, harvesting monsters was also increasing his soul coins. It was obvious that he was earning more than he was consuming, which gave him a lot of comfort. Under this crazy consumption, Tesla showed the audience watching the live stream what it meant to grind levels. He leveled up from level 18 to level 28 in half an hour, and his experience bar was still jumping crazily. The performance of the mech kept increasing, and its firepower was getting fiercer. This kind of grind made the players envious. The corpses of the monsters around him had started to pile up, but the monsters were still continuously attracted by the roars. There was even a Ghost Commander level creature. This Ghost Commander level creature braved the endless gunfire and entered the forbidden area of the fortress. Tesla was shocked when he saw this. He immediately aimed all his weapons at this Ghost Commander level creature. Boom! This Ghost Commander level creature was blasted away in an instant. Its body was badly mutilated as it flew backward. After sending this Ghost Commander level creature flying, Tesla changed the direction of the output of his weapons, forcing the monsters that were approaching him to retreat again. Tesla also started to record the parameters of the fortress during the battle and compared the changes in the data for the next modification. The number of monsters was completely useless against this kind of defense that relied on extreme firepower. At this moment, Tesla was like an army on his own. Under the control of the mechanical arm, he didn't need to operate the supply of the entire fortress at all. He only needed to continuously send the ammunition boxes out of the space. 1.5 hours later, Tesla had already broken through level 40. This kind of leveling speed was like cheating, which made the players extremely envious. However, Tesla, who was in the center of the fortress, didn't think so. In his idea, a battle fortress equipped with more than 30 types of weapons was only a prototype. What he needed to do next was to continuously increase the strength of the mech, and then install more weapons. After all, in his opinion, a battle fortress that couldn't be considered a real battle fortress if the number of weapons it could carry did not exceed 100. He even thought that if the conditions allowed, he would try to install 1,000 types of weapons. When the time came, a battle fortress that could be laid flat and transformed into a battle form would occupy at least 1,000 square meters. Tesla's face revealed an infatuated smile as he thought about this. At this moment, at the top of a tall building 1,800 meters away from the battle fortress, Emily, who was taking an afternoon nap in the sun, rubbed her messy hair and slowly sat up. Listening to the roars in the distance, Emily yawned and took out a cigarette with sleepy eyes. She lit it up and took a deep puff. Phew! After puffing out a cloud of thick smoke, she stood up and cast her gaze towards the area where the cannons were roaring. She immediately noticed the battle fortress that was resisting the endless tide of monsters. After staring blankly for a moment, Emily was clearly shaken by the mechanical fortress. This kind of violent firepower was completely different from her style, but it was obvious that the battle mode of the fortress was more shocking. However, at this moment, Emily slowly raised her kiss of the black lily and aimed her gaze at the egg-shaped silver defense shield in the center of the battle fortress through the eyepiece. After looking at the value of the wind speed and the visual deviation caused by the light, Emily smirked and immediately pulled the trigger. Bang! Player Tesla has been killed. Critical hit. After completing the kill, Black Lily yawned again and mumbled, "So noisy." The screen gradually darkened, and the kill notification resounded in his mind. At this moment, Tesla was dumbfounded. The players in the live stream, on the other hand, were laughing and typing "show off," "failed to show off," and so on. Chapter 302. Tesla was completely dumbfounded by his sudden death. He looked at the kill notification on the screen and realized that he was killed by a player. Tesla was even more dumbfounded. He had built the battle fortress to fight against the endless monsters in Naraka in order to research and survive in this world. However, he was killed by a player this time. Tesla was speechless. After a moment of silence, Tesla was ready for revenge. "Anyone who stands in my way must die." Although Tesla was killed, his action of developing the battle fortress had a great impact on the Naraka server. Most players were interested in modifying mechs. Moreover, Tesla was not the only one who had professional experience in this field. Soon, a mech modification association was established in the Naraka server forum. The association only recruited talents with professional knowledge. Every day, the topic of discussion was how to modify mechs and improve their performance. Moreover, the association had posted suggestions and blueprints on the forum for other players to use. It received a lot of good reviews in the Naraka server forum. Apart from that, the military of the United States encountered another problem that gave them a headache. After Tesla applied for funding to play the game, the researchers who worked with Tesla collectively requested the military of the United States to provide them with gaming pods. They also wanted to play the game battle online. The reason was simple. After seeing Tesla's mech modification, these researchers were tempted. They had been working hard for scientific research all their lives. Therefore, these products that were far beyond the reality of technology were full of temptation to them. After seeing Tesla's modification process and knowing that such technology existed in the game, how could they sit still? Therefore, the most powerful research team in the United States military entered battle online and established the military's research group. Compared to the mech association established by ordinary players, the military's research group was much more powerful than the civilian organizations, except for the small number of members. The mech modification plans they provided were directly used by the military to help the soldiers modify their mechs and improve their performance. The Naraka server had officially entered the initial stage of technological development. At the same time, in order to better establish a foothold in Naraka, the United States military took the lead. The soldiers and the players formed an annihilation army and officially launched a counterattack against the forces in the Naraka server. Compared to the passive response of the players in the European server and the Naraka server, the Baki players were always on the path of stirring up trouble. After the war between the Sea King and the Langya Island United Army broke out, the Baki players did not stay idle. Although they did not organize any large-scale joint operations, small-scale harassment never stopped. In the face of the players' repeated invasions, the forces of Langya Island had no choice but to send reinforcements to the border of the Void Ocean. It could be said that the presence of the players had helped the Sea King to delay a large number of the military forces of the United Army, making it easier for the Sea King Navy to fight. Currently, at the border between the Void Ocean and the Kowloon Ocean, a player crouched on the back of a sea monster, his right hand constantly stroking the whimpering sea monster. He wore a smile on his face as he muttered to himself from time to time. This player's name was Witzard, and he had recently completed his class change to a Rune Master. His strength could be said to be insignificant among other players. However, he was a pro in the eyes of the players, and his popularity in the forum and livestream circles was firmly in the top 3. This was because he was recognized by the players as a beast-taming master. He was also nicknamed Pokemon Beast Tamer by the players. He was a player who had a large number of fans since the beginning of his live streaming. It was precisely because of his existence that a large number of players embarked on the path of beast taming. It would not be an exaggeration to say that he was the pioneer of the beast taming craze in the game. At this moment, he was challenging the beast taming challenge. According to Witzard, since the forces of the sea could tame sea monsters, naturally, the players could do the same. None of the players in the live streaming channel objected to Witzard's bold words, because this man had repeatedly used facts to make the impossible possible. Moreover, he had indeed done it. In order to tame this sea monster, Witzard could be said to have performed a real-life version of the Old Man in the Sea in the live streaming channel. He had drifted in the sea for a few days and nights before finally taming this young sea monster. After a few days and nights of hard work, he had finally succeeded. At this moment, the live streaming channel was filled with cheers and reward from the players. Watching this scene with their own eyes, many players who had watched the whole process felt a sense of satisfaction in their hearts, as if the person who tamed the sea monster was them. Witzard had also proven himself once again, giving a large number of beast-taming fans a new goal. According to Witzard, the players could also form an army of sea monsters like the forces of the sea. Spectre ships and Spectre warships were not the only ways to fight on the sea. The success of this taming also proved that his point of view was completely feasible. Many players were excited, as if they could see themselves controlling the army of sea monsters and galloping in the sea. Countless rewards instantly flooded the screen. Meanwhile, Witzard's live streaming channel had once again topped the real-time popularity ranking of the forum. The reason why the players liked Witzard was not only that he was really good at taming sea monsters, but more importantly, it was his perseverance. For example, when he was taming zombie wolves in the beginning, in order to achieve his goal, Witzard could be said to have died over and over again. At that time, many players in the live streaming channel mocked and ridiculed him, but he never gave up. He firmly chose to continue, and finally succeeded in taming the first zombie wolf in the game. In the eyes of the players, his success was not an accident, but more of his hard work and perseverance. It was also this spirit of his that infected many players, and they became his loyal fans. Looking at the young sea monster that was no longer struggling, Witzard once again stretched out his hand and stroked its head, continuously comforting it. In half a year, Witzard had tamed many creatures, and he also discovered a common characteristic of these tamed creatures in the game. These creatures were actually spiritual. Although they could not understand what he was saying, these creatures could actually feel the thoughts that he was expressing while he was speaking. This was a kind of emotional perception. For example, when one was angry or sad, these creatures could actually rely on their sharp senses to detect the dispersed emotions. Although it was very difficult to rely on this method to communicate, it could be considered as Bizet getting the hang of it. Gradually, he put into practice, and it had achieved great results. Under Witzard's comfort, the tense body of the young sea monster gradually relaxed, and it let out a grunt sound as its throat vibrated. Its tail was constantly slapping the surface of the water, as if it was enjoying Witzard's touch. Just as Witzard was comforting the young sea monster, a long, hoarse cry was heard from the depths of the sea. A huge sound wave radiated forward, and the surface of the sea suddenly became turbulent. Hearing this long cry, Witzard frowned. Just when he was about to let the young sea monster leave this area, a huge mass of black suddenly appeared on the surface of the sea. This black shadow covered a huge area, and it was at least 1,000 meters away, which shocked Witzard. In his line of sight, a deep green eye grew larger as the black shadow approached. At this time, the young sea monster under Witzard also began to cry uneasily. Seeing this, Witzard quickly reached out his hand to comfort it. Whoosh! A huge circular curtain of waves rose on the surface of the water, and a huge ferocious head slowly emerged from the water. Seeing this giant beast, Witzard was instantly dumbfounded. Tao Wu, Lord of the Void Ocean. Creature details. The top king of the ocean that has ruled the Void Ocean for tens of thousands of years, and its strength has reached the level of the ocean spirit, demigod. Creature origin. Creature status. Peak, sloth, nature. Seeing the creature in front of him, Witzard was instantly shocked. Run! Run! At this time, Witzard quickly roared at the young sea monster under him. As a player, how could not know how terrifying Tao Wu was? It was fine if he died, but he did not want to see this young sea monster being swallowed by Tao Wu. At this moment, Witzard recalled a post about Tao Wu on the forum. At that time, many players complained in this post that the spiritual fish that they caught was snatched by Tao Wu. After many encounters with it, Tao Wu's bad habit of snatching its prey was well known among the players. Therefore, when Witzard saw Tao Wu appear, he already knew that something was wrong. Tao Wu must have taken a fancy to the young sea monster that he had just tamed. Thinking of this, Witzard kept urging the young sea monster to run away. He was extremely nervous. Ignoring Witzard's roar, the young sea monster raised its head and let out a long cry at Tao Wu, who was staring at them coldly. Growl, run! Stop growling. You're going to be swallowed. Looking at the young sea monster, Witzard felt a headache coming on. At this time, Tao Wu suddenly looked at the young sea monster with its deep green eyes and let out a long cry. Growl, Tao Wu said, I told you not to run around, but you didn't listen. Now you've been caught, right? Get back home and let me swallow the guy on your back. The young sea monster said, No, he's my master. He told me that from now on, I have to listen to him. So, Dad, what you say doesn't count. Master is the boss, righteous face. Tao Wu was speechless. Having such a stupid son, Tao Wu suddenly felt a little tired. Chapter 303. Crayon_Shinshan. A master is indeed a master. His first move is a gyoka. When are you going to tame Grotto? Laughing emoji. Looking at the approaching Swanee, Baize swam to the side of the little sea beast, stroked its head, and couldn't help but sigh. Ha! Pokemon Master, 233. It's all your fault for saying that you wanted to increase the difficulty so that the master wouldn't be able to analyze it. Now look what happened. I accidentally tamed Tao Wu's son. Let me cover my face and laugh for a while. Then I'm going to devour him. What are you going to do about it? I turned to look at Baize. Therefore, when it saw Baize being bullied, the 5-month-old, immature little sea beast felt as if it was being bullied after being educated by Baize and started to fight back. What the F***CK? Lao AI glanced at Baize as if he was an idiot, then continued to ignore him. Instead, he looked at the little sea beast and said, Tao Wu's mouth opened and closed twice. He had never felt so aggrieved other than when he fought with that lunatic, the demonic god. Previously, due to the uproar from the live broadcast audience, Baize did not turn on the analysis ability during the whole process of taming the little sea beast. Naturally, he did not know the race and characteristics of the little sea beast. This was to increase the difficulty of taming. Little Kuan flapped his tail twice and turned his head to look at Baize reluctantly. Creature details. The son of Tao Wu, the overlord of the Void Ocean, and Han Meng, the overlord of the Yesha Ocean. He has a noble bloodline and is born with an affinity to the ocean. He has the potential to become an ocean spirit. With the integration of the bloodline of the two ocean overlords, he has a chance to advance to the deity realm. Let's go. It's my fault. Go back with your father. Baize caressed little Kuan and advised him again. Little Kuan, sea spirit level. Seeing Tao Wu approaching with its huge mouth wide open, Baize thought that Tao Wu was going to swallow the little sea beast. It quickly took a step forward, jumped up, and punched Tao Wu's head. Let's go. Our fate has come to an end. Baize patted little Kuan's head and said awkwardly. Looking at Tao Wu, who was staring at him with wide eyes, Baize felt extremely awkward at this moment. Don't come near me. Seeing Tao Wu's eyes widen, Baize became nervous. He couldn't bear to see this little sea beast get swallowed just like that. I'll duel with you. The little sea beast refused to back down. If an ordinary sea creature dared to provoke it like this, it would definitely swallow it whole. But this was its own son, and he had just been born not long ago. Boss Tao Wu, this wasn't intentional. I'll return your son to you. At this moment, my mood is extremely complicated. After thinking for a while, Tao Wu opened its huge mouth. Hey, can you understand what I'm saying? Let him go, and I'll let you eat. At this moment, Baize, who had been spat out, had a depressed look on his face. Monster Hunter, after this incident, remember to analyze your beast taming in the future. This taming is a classic example. Take it as a warning, laughing emoji. Was it because the taste was bad? Get back here. Tao Wu glared at little Kuan, who was whining in pain. What the hell do you want? Tao Wu asked again. However, after being spat out, Baize thought that Tao Wu would leave. He did not expect it to approach him again. This made Baize nervous again. Super Summoner, 666. This Bo Tianxiu, the son of a dignified Lao AI, has actually been abducted by a master. Now you know why Lao AI doesn't swallow you. Laughing emoji, growl. It's a typical case of counting the money after being betrayed. Moreover, where did that smug look come from? Although Tao Wu held back his strength, Baize and a little sea beast were still sent flying dozens of meters away. However, the little sea beast who saw this scene straightened its stomach and leaped from the surface of the water. It swung its tail at Tao Wu's face. Did you hear that? He asked you to come with me. Baize suddenly felt very angry in the face of such a situation. However, there was nothing he could do because he was not strong enough. Tao Wu was so angry that he immediately swung his tail, sending the little sea beast and Baize flying. However, Tao Wu was even more indignant at this moment. His son was helping someone else to kill him and dominate the Void Ocean. This was such a heart-wrenching feeling. Master is the most powerful. The little sea beast continued to speak confidently. Baize was completely stunned when he saw the little sea beast message. The live streaming channel was even more noisy. Son, you've been deceived. Let me swallow this guy, and you'll come back with me. Xiaoji, Tao Wu, mother of asterisk Kerr, how dare you abduct my son? How do you want to die? Laughing emoji. Baize was upset as he looked at little Kuin's crying silhouette that kept turning around to look at him. Isn't this a little too loyal? Tao Wu ignored Baize and continued to stare at the little sea beast. I'm your father. How dare you hit your father? Chirp! Tao Wu let out a long cry of grief and indignation. Tao Wu felt that he had committed a sin to have such a stupid son. His stomach's digestive ability was extremely strong. If he really swallowed it, the little sea beast would definitely not survive. However, just when he was about to swallow it, he saw the little sea beast doing a carp flip on the surface of the water and jumping into its mouth. Baize, who saw the little sea beast counterattack, was so scared that his face turned pale. He wondered if this little sea beast was a fool. It was the overlord of the void ocean, and yet it attacked like a fool. However, his attack could not even break Tao Wu's skin. Instead, he was sent flying back to the little sea beast's back. Tao Wu quickly stopped swallowing and spat out both of them. Master's enemy is my enemy, the little sea beast said confidently. Apparently, the brainwashing of the past few days had worked. Come with me, I won't eat him anymore. Idiot, what are you doing? Tao Wu was instantly enraged. Upon hearing that, Tao Wu turned to little Kuin. Tao Wu was completely enraged that his son wanted to fight with him. Tao Wu felt helpless when he heard his foolish son's words. Baize, who was sent flying again, was traumatized. He had guessed that this bastard Tao Wu wanted to toy with them before swallowing them. Roar. Then I'll defeat you. The little sea beast continued to clamor. Creature status. Cub 5 months. I'm not leaving. I want to build an army of sea beasts with him. Our goal is to conquer the void ocean. The little sea beast looked very proud. Baize then activated his analysis ability. The little sea beast's words made Tao Wu tremble all over. He suddenly swung his tail and instantly set off a huge wave that was tens of meters high. Therefore, Tao Wu decided to ignore the little sea beast. He opened his mouth and sucked Baize into his mouth. Ing! Little Kuin let out a long cry again. However, this time the little sea beast was going to die. Baize could not care less about the promise he made with the players in the live streaming room. He immediately opened the analysis interface. After thinking for a while, Baize took the initiative to swim to the little sea beast and climbed up its back. He then stood up and shouted at Tao Wu, I'm with Master. If we're going to die, we'll die together. Tao Wu could not take it anymore. He pulled his tail out of the water and wrapped it around the little sea beast. He then took a deep look at Baize and swam away with the little sea beast. Your father is the overlord of this ocean. There's no need to conquer it. Come with me. Tao Wu was completely furious at this moment. Ing, I still don't know your name. Then, Baize was dumbfounded. Hunter, damn, this interface is scaring me. Master, you've King abducted my son. Facepalm. As a creature with the potential of the sea spirit level, what Baize did not know was that the little sea beast could understand everything he said during the few days of drifting on the sea. It was just that it could not communicate with him. Chapter 304. Beiki, Lioli Coast. A specter ship with countless animal pendants was slowly sailing out of the coast, heading toward the void ocean. Lying on the deck, Baize was lost in thought as he stared at the blue sky. Baize couldn't help but sigh as he recalled the accident that happened during the taming of the sea beast. He thought that the aggressive Tao Wu wanted to swallow the little sea beast and was furious at that time. He didn't expect that he was the one who kidnapped the little sea beast's son. In the end, it was the little sea beast's help that saved him, which made him feel very embarrassed. He went out to the sea again to fulfill his promise, which was to tame a sea beast. However, with the previous experience, Zay promised the players in the live streaming channel that he would use his analyzing ability during the taming process to prevent the previous situation from happening again. As the Spectre ship sailed into the void ocean, the calm sea suddenly became turbulent and the wind was strong. However, Zay was already familiar with the bad weather of the void ocean, so he was unperturbed and continued to steer the Spectre ship forward. As he approached the center of the void ocean, Zay took out his fishing gear and hung a piece of meat on the hook. At the same time, he sprinkled the powder of the sea spirit grass, which was the favorite of most sea beasts. After throwing the hook into the sea, Zay waited quietly. Before deciding to tame the sea beasts, Zay had collected monster illustrations from the players on the forum. From there, he learned that the sea beasts usually lived in the deeper parts of the sea. Therefore, it would be difficult to lure the sea beasts to the surface without using fishing gear. The powder of the sea spirit grass on the bait could emit the scent that the sea beasts liked, which would increase the chances of catching the sea beast. All he had to do now was to wait. 2 hours later, Zay lifted the fishing rod again and looked at the white fish that was struggling frantically with its tail. He felt helpless. He was here to catch sea beasts, but he didn't catch any after waiting for 2 hours. Instead, he caught a few big fishes, and none of them were spiritual fish. However, Zay didn't give up. He threw the hook into the water again and continued to wait while chatting with his fans in the live streaming channel. At this time, a whale-like creature with 2 short claws on its fins was swimming toward the surface of the sea. When it was about 100 meters away from the surface of the sea, it suddenly stopped swimming and turned toward the south excitedly. It was that familiar taste again. Delicious. Soon, he saw a large piece of meat sprinkled with sea spirit grass powder. When he was about to swallow it, he suddenly hesitated. After swinging its tail and swimming around the meat twice, the sea monster focused its attention on the almost transparent silk thread. It looked up and then at the piece of meat. Suddenly, it opened its mouth and swallowed the piece of meat. Ouch! The pain of the fish hook piercing into its upper jaw made the sea monster's eyes turn bloodshot. On the surface of the sea, Zay's face lit up when it felt the vibration of the fishing rod. It quickly turned the capstan to pull its prey ashore. After turning the capstan, Zay discovered that this sea beast was definitely not small. He immediately squatted down and prepared for a long battle. These sea beasts were extremely strong, and it was impossible to drag them to the surface of the sea until they ran out of stamina. It was normal for them to be dragged on the surface of the sea for a few days. After fixing the fishing rod to the mast on the deck and making sure that it would not break away, Zay began to turn the capstan again. But this time, Zay was stunned. He didn't feel any pressure at all. Did the sea beast run away? In order to find out the reason, Zay sped up the capstan's rotation, but he still didn't feel any pressure. This made Zay very puzzled, thinking that the sea beast had really run away. Zay sighed and prepared to bait it again. However, as he pulled, he suddenly realized that something was wrong because a huge black shadow appeared on the surface of the sea. Just when Zay was surprised, the black shadow suddenly jumped out of the water. A water column was sprayed from the creature's mouth, drenching Zay. Ing! It was a familiar figure and a familiar cry. Zay was stunned when he saw little Kuan. Ing! Falling into the water again, little Kuan swam to the side of the Spectre ship while flapping his tail. He raised his head and opened his mouth, revealing the fish hook embedded in his upper jaw. Zay was speechless when he saw little Kuan's excited look. As a creature with the potential of a divine beast, where did he get the courage to be fooled by the same mistake twice and look so proud of himself? Zay took a few steps forward and put both of his hands into little Kuan's mouth. He pulled out the fish hook while little Kuan was groaning in pain. Then, he reached out and stroked little Kuan, who was leaning his head on the edge of the ship. "I'm sorry, little Kuan." Little Kuan chirped excitedly when he heard Zay's words. He then slapped the water surface with his tail, causing waves. Zay couldn't help but smile when he saw little Kuan acting like a spoiled child. However, he seemed to have thought of something, and his face suddenly turned serious. "Oh yeah, you have to go back, or else your father will come looking for you again." Little Kuan obviously understood Zay's words. He stopped slapping his tail, lowered his eyelids, and let out a low cry of grievance. Baizé sighed helplessly. He took out a few pieces of dried meat from his space and stuffed them into little Kuin's mouth. Go back. Our fate has come to an end. I'm not strong enough to tame you yet. Looking at little Kuin's aggrieved face, Baizé finally made up his mind and said sternly, Go. I'm not your master anymore. Tears welled up in little Kuin's eyes. He slapped the water surface with his tail a few times and then dived into the water. Baizé felt helpless as he looked at the shrinking shadow on the water surface. Although he liked little Kuin, who was an intelligent creature, his father was Tao Wu after all. If he were to bring him away, it would definitely cause trouble, big trouble. As a player, he was not afraid of that. However, he was afraid that it would cause trouble to other players who were active in the sea. After all, Tao Wu would definitely treat the players as its enemy, and it would be difficult for them to survive in the sea in the future. After waiting for a while, and seeing that the shadow had completely disappeared, Baizé took out the dried meat again and hung it on the hook. He sprinkled some sea sole powder on it and then threw it into the water. This time, the hook shook again in less than 5 minutes. Baizé was delighted as he did not expect it to be hooked so quickly. He immediately steadied himself and started to turn the capstan. However, Baizé's face turned pale as he turned the capstan. Something was not right. The force had disappeared again, and it seemed like the creature was floating to the surface of the water on its own. Sure enough, after the shadow leaped out of the water, a familiar cry was heard. Looking at little Kuin, who was excitedly flapping his tail and leaning on the edge of the boat, Baizé did not even have the energy to complain. Why was it so difficult to catch a sea beast? The players in the live streaming channel were also in an uproar when they saw the scene. In the live streaming channel, Monster Hunter, fate has brought us together. Congratulations to Master for continuously catching the son of Tao Wu. Your luck is unbeatable. Laughing emoji, super summoner. Ha. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? It's me again. Laughing emoji, Pokemon Master. This is fate. Master, why don't you accept it? It's so sincere and you still won't accept it. Are you a man? Scumbag identification complete. Laughing emoji, Chong Mei's fan. This little sea beast is really intelligent. Master, please tame it. I want to see you ride the sea with it. Heart emoji, Hunter. Little Kuin. You want to catch a sea beast? No way. You're my man. Don't even think about getting involved with those coquettish bitches. You can only catch me, understand? Tonggua's face slapping warning. JPG, Crayon Shinchan. Tao Wu, I'm on my way here. I'll arrive at the battlefield in 3 minutes. Then, I'll live stream myself beating up my silly son. Everyone, remember to reward me. Laughing emoji. Baizé could not help but roll his eyes when he saw the player's bullet screen in the live streaming channel. Little Kuin opened his mouth excitedly and signaled Baizé to quickly pull the hook. Seeing this, the veins on Baizé's forehead twitched. Are you King addicted? Chapter 305. However, Tao Wu's words left Baizé dumbfounded. He could not understand why Tao Wu, who was furious just a moment ago, suddenly changed his attitude. Was he going to entrust little Kuin to him? Little Kuin's affinity towards you has reached loyalty. The hidden function has been activated. Do you want to tame him and turn him into your pet? Ow, then you can swallow me too. Little Kuin's little claws clawed the edge of the boat stubbornly. Little Kuin nodded his head in confusion. Although he did not understand, he knew that his father seemed to have agreed for him to follow Baizé. Follow me back. Tao Wu glared at him again. Little Kuin looked confused, as if he was trying to understand the meaning of Tao Wu's words. After a while, little Kuin raised his finger and pointed at Baizé. However, in this void ocean where he could be devoured at any time if he did not become stronger, the only way for him to survive was to be more ruthless than all the sea creatures. Only by making them afraid could he survive. Looking at Tao Wu's fierce eyes, Baizé suddenly wanted to explain, but he did not know what to say. Annoyed, Tao Wu stopped talking nonsense. He swung his tail and wrapped it around little Kuin, intending to bring him away. Many blurry figures appeared again. I don't want to. However, Tao Wu was stunned when he heard little Kuen's words. He suddenly remembered why he let little Kuen repeat his path of killing. Back then, he did not have a choice. If he did not grow, he would die. However, he could now give little Kuen a choice. Although the past made Tao Wu feel emotional, he did not regret taking this path because he did not have a choice. Moreover, this was Bai Zai's first time being tamed with a game notification. However, little Kuen's little claws were pulling on the edge of the boat. As Tao Wu pulled, Bai Zai's specter ship was dragged away. At this moment, Tao Wu suddenly realized that he was the happiest and happiest at that time. Do you really want to piss me off? You're my and Hai Meng's son. Can't you be more promising? Don't you know how embarrassing it is to acknowledge someone else as your master? I want to go with him. I like him. Little Kuen felt Tao Wu's anger. He lowered his head and pointed at Bai Zai, who was standing on the boat, with his little claws. As Tao Wu's voice fell, he dived into the water and dived into the deep sea. He doesn't deserve it. No. Although he knew that little Kuen might not understand the meaning of his words, Tao Wu still said it and let little Kuen make his own choice. Son, remember that you are my son. Don't make me lose face. Yes, little Kuen was still young and did not understand how noble he was. Everything was in his nature. If he liked someone, he liked them. If he hated them, he hated them. There was no concept of hierarchy at all. Bai Zai glanced at the rowdy players in the live streaming channel and fell into a dilemma. He had just promised Tao Wu that he and his son would be friends, not master and servant. Upon hearing this, Bai suddenly froze. But it felt very comfortable with Bai Zai. I entrust my son to you. Remember, you are friends, not his master. Bai Zai, at this moment, fragments of memories from ancient times flashed through his mind. Let go. Tao Wu let go of little Kuen's tail as he was afraid that he would hurt little Kuen in the process. He turned around and roared furiously. Tao Wu turned to little Kuen. Seeing Tao Wu leave, Bai Zai and little Kuen stared at each other in confusion and excitement. In order to achieve this, he had gradually lost his natural instincts and walked step by step through endless devouring and killing to reach where he was now. Obviously, little Kuen had attached himself to him, and he could no longer continue fishing for sea beasts. Bai Zai was shocked to see Tao Wu suddenly speaking in human language. After all, he had the impression that Tao Wu did not know how to speak. Tao Wu. Tao Wu's eyes widened when he heard it. He was exasperated that little Kuen did not live up to his expectations. He could not understand how he, the overlord of the sea, could have such a son. Son, I'll give you a chance to choose and walk the path that you want to walk. However, I left a way out for you. When you regret it, you'll walk the path that I used to walk, and I won't give you another chance to choose. From Tao Wu's point of view, little Kuen should grow up like him. He should look for a new sea when he was an adult and start from scratch in that unfamiliar sea. He would devour and evolve step by step until he finally defeated the old overlord of that sea and became the new overlord of the sea. That was the path that his son should take. Moreover, little Kuen had never been bullied since he was born. Under Bai Zai's taming, he was already loyal to Bai Zai and wanted to follow Bai Zai from the bottom of his heart. Bai Zai, who did not know what to do, rubbed little Kuen's head. Just when he was about to warn little Kuen to leave again, a huge black shadow quickly emerged from the bottom of the water. Then, a huge ferocious head broke out of the water. However, little Kuen was different. Tao was furious. Although he knew that little Kuen was immature, he still felt that little Kuen was a disgrace to him. He did not look like a creature with overlord potential at all. Bai Zai was completely speechless when he pulled the hook out of little Kuen's mouth again. Looking at little Kuen, Tao Wu could not help but sigh. He shook his head and slowly dived into the water. Son, you're running around while I'm asleep again. Those friends who were not strong, but could bring him happiness, were no longer around. He chose to abandon them because he wanted to become stronger, and he didn't want to live in fear anymore. At that moment, the game notification suddenly rang in Bai Zai's mind. Looking at his stupid son, Tao Wu suddenly felt exhausted. He decided that he would send little Kuen to his mother, Hai Meng, when the time came he could not take care of him anymore. I'll swallow him if you don't leave. Tao Wu threatened Little Kuan fiercely as he looked at Little Kuan, who was rolling around in the water. Tao Wu's expression gradually became complicated. At that moment, he thought of his past self. Wasn't he the same back then? I want to go with Master. Little Kuan turned around and replied as he flapped his tail twice. Little Kuan, who had just been born, was not mature enough to understand many things. Therefore, he lacked the basic ability to make judgments. To be honest, after knowing Little Kuan's identity, Bai Zhe did not have the intention to subdue him. After all, his father was too strong, and he was afraid of attracting trouble. Keeping his simple nature and living according to his preferences, or abandoning his nature to grow up in killing and devouring. In fact, Little Kuan had a choice because he was Bai Zhe's son, and he was the overlord of the Void Ocean. He had the strength to do so. Do you understand? Tao Wu opened his mouth and roared at Bai Zhe. Suddenly, huge waves were set off and the wind was howling. Bai Zhe quickly nodded. Looking at Little Kuan's aggrieved expression, Tao Wu's heart was stirred. Son, are you sure? You're still young and you don't know the meaning of choice. But I still want to tell you that you should be the most powerful overlord of the ocean. All creatures will tremble in fear when they hear your name. This is the path that I once wanted you to take. But now I'll give you a new choice. Do you choose yourself, or do you choose to be a king? Tao Wu came. Hearing that, Tao Wu nodded with a complicated expression. Then, he suddenly turned to look at Bai Zhe and said with a ferocious expression, I just like you. Little Kuan continued to say. Chapter 306. After struggling for a while, Bai Zhe chose to give up. Are you sure you want to give up turning Little Kuan into a pet egg? The game notification appeared again. Yes. Bai Zhe smiled when the game notification faded away. He walked to the edge of the boat and rubbed the pitiful Little Kuan. We'll be friends from now on. Come back to Lioli with me. I'll introduce you to some new friends. Little Kuan nodded immediately. Just when Bai Zhe was about to bring Little Kuan back to Beiki, the game notification popped up in his head again. Creature Little Kuan's affection towards you has reached loyalty, triggering a hidden function. Would you like to sign an equality contract with him? Little Kuan will become your exclusive NPC after the contract is signed successfully. Bai Zhe was stunned when he saw the second game notification. He thought he had lost an opportunity and sighed in his heart. It would be great if there was an equality contract, but he did not expect it to appear immediately. At this moment, Lu Wu, who was behind the scenes, was speechless. He thought Bai Zhe would choose to turn Little Kuan into a pet, but he did not expect him to give up. Lu Wu knew how tempting it was. After all, Little Kuan's lowest potential was at the level of Tao Wu, and he could even reach the god level. That was why Lu Wu issued this mission to Bai Zhe. After all, if Bai Zhe agreed, Little Kuan would be digitized and left a soul imprint in the artifact. It was equivalent to indirectly becoming Lu Wu's power. However, Bai Zhe's choice surprised Lu Wu. Although it was just a game to him, it could still create great value. A divine beast with unlimited potential could definitely be sold at a sky-high price. But Bai Zhe chose to give up. Lu Wu could not help but admire him. However, Lu Wu did not want to miss out on Little Kuan, who had unlimited potential, so he gave him a relatively acceptable equality contract. In fact, it was still digitizing Little Kuan. The difference was just reducing Bai Zhe's control over Little Kuan. Looking at Bai Zhe, who was still hesitating, Lu Wu continued to wait quietly. In fact, from Lu Wu's point of view, Bai Zhe's choice to subdue Little Kuan was also beneficial. After all, Bai Zhe was not strong, and Little Kuan was only a sea spirit level creature at this stage. If Little Kuan was killed by a strong enemy without being digitized, it would be a real death, and he would not be able to be resurrected like Bai Zhe. However, as long as he was digitized, Bailey would be able to resurrect him no matter how dead he was. Since they had chosen to travel together in the future, digitization was a beneficial choice for both of them. After pondering for a while, Bai Zhe seemed to have made a decision. Then, he pressed the confirm button. Instantly, a server announcement appeared. Server announcement. Congratulations to player Bai Zhe for successfully signing an equality contract with the son of Tao Wu, Little Kuan. Little Kuan has officially become Bai Zhe's NPC. The appearance of this announcement caused the popularity of Baize's live broadcast room to soar. A large number of people who heard the news rushed over, wanting to know how Baize did it and what Bai's son looked like. In a live stream, go, Pikachu, congratulations, master. Scattering flowers, tying the knot. When are you going to have monkeys? I'm looking forward to it. Laughing emoji. Hugging Jade Rabbit and roasting Chong. It's been a long time since I've been to Master's live stream. I didn't expect Master to become more and more powerful. You even tamed Tao Wu's son. Scattering flowers, good luck. Trainer Xiaoji. I immediately came here when I saw the server announcement. Master's mighty. No wonder you're my favorite streamer. When are you going to tame Tao Wu as well? Laughing emoji, Monster Hunter. I've watched the whole process. Don't worry about Tao Wu taking revenge on everyone. This time, Tao Wu really entrusted his son to Master. Although I don't understand why Tao Wu would suddenly give his son away. Maybe he can't stand this silly son anymore. Laughing emoji, Crayon Shinchan replied to Monster Hunter. Maybe it's the evil deal between Master and Tao Wu. Laughing emoji, Crayon Shinchan. Congratulations late. I won't bother with Master's perseverance. Laughing emoji, a large wolf dog replied to Crayon Shinchan. I didn't know that someone like you would have a streamer that you like. Chana's overhead view. Crayon Shinchan replied to a large wolf dog. I laughed and touched your head. Why do you like to let me touch you so much? I'm helpless. Laughing emoji, Hunter, Master, quickly show us Little Kuin's specific attributes. Hungry emoji. At this time, Baize did not pay attention to the live stream because Little Kuin, who was by his side, had suddenly disappeared. In the artifact space, Little Kuin was floating in midair. Bailey, who was wearing a white coat and glasses, had long been prepared for this. She immediately activated the digitization process. Since Little Kuin had just been born and his strength was low, the digitization process ended in less than 3 minutes. Bailey then erased Little Kuin's memory in the artifact and sent him back to Baize. Baize also received a game notification. Binding successful. Little Kuin is officially your bound NPC. Looking at Little Kuin, who seemed to be a little confused, Baize subconsciously used his analysis ability. Little Kuin, Sea Spirit level. Specific information, the son of Tao Wu, the overlord of the Void Ocean, and Hai Meng, the overlord of the Yesha Ocean. He has a noble bloodline and is born with an affinity to the ocean. He has the potential to become a sea spirit. With the integration of the two ocean overlords' bloodlines, he has a chance to advance to the deity level. Status, Juvenile Bound 2. Baize, Player. Unlocked information, talent, skills, attributes, talent. Kuin Swallow, gold level talent with potential for growth. Talent information, and innate bloodline ability. He can grow by devouring all flesh and blood species. The stronger the creature, the greater the gain after devouring. Talent, ocean affinity, hegemony level. Talent information, and innate bloodline ability. He has been recognized by the ocean since birth. All attributes will increase by 30% in the ocean. Hegemony level skill. All the ferocious beasts that have the potential to compete for the position of the Ocean Overlord are qualified to obtain this ability. This ability will advance after obtaining the position of the Ocean Overlord. Talent, Giant Beast of Heaven and Earth gold level talent. Talent information, and innate bloodline ability. As the descendant of the Giant Beast of Heaven and Earth, his body will grow bigger as he grows. He will gain an 800% increase in health points and 500% increase in durability, defense. Talent, Body of Divine Beast. Talent information, and innate bloodline ability. As the descendant of the ancient Divine Beast, the Divine Beast's bloodline in your body will accelerate the recovery of your body. You will recover 1% health points per second, fixed. Talent, Tao Wu and Hai Meng's Blessing. Talent information, Little Kuin was blessed by the two ocean overlords the moment he was born. Tao Wu and Hai Meng will sense Little Kuin's location the moment his life is in danger. Skills, none. He did not learn any skills other than the innate ability when he was born. Attributes. The players in the live streaming channel were shocked when they saw this series of attributes. Although little Kuin did not have any skills, each of the 5 innate abilities was unbelievably powerful. It could even be said that they surpassed the abilities of most players. It was impossible to say that they were not envious. However, the players were not only ridiculing this Emperor-type streamer, they also sent their blessings. Although there was no inheritance, Bai Zai's rise this time was not inferior to obtaining an inheritance. Seeing that little Kuin was still looking at him in confusion, Bai Zai poked his head with his finger. "Little fella, please take care of me in the future." Although little Kuin did not really understand what Bai Zai meant, he could feel the joy in Bai Zai's emotions. He immediately squinted his eyes and smiled. He raised his head and let out a cheerful cry. Chirp! Chapter 307. After Bai Zai successfully tamed little Kuin, beast taming became a hot topic once again. The beast taming craze during the early days of Battle Online servers' launch did not last long. As the players' strength gradually increased, creatures like zombie wolves were no longer of significant use. The difficulty of taming high-level beasts was much higher than creatures like zombie wolves. Although they could be tamed, it was not worth the effort compared to the effort required. Under such circumstances, there were very few ordinary players who tamed beasts other than Bai Zai, who was recognized as a beast taming master. However, little Kuin's attribute panel had stimulated many players this time. At this time, Luwu launched the game update and released a new game function while the beast taming was still a hot topic. Server announcement. The intimacy system is officially open in this game update. Update details. After this update, the intimacy system will be added. This system will be applicable to all creatures in the game except the players. There are 3 main paths: pet, lovers, and brothers. Pet: hostility, indifference, strangeness, peace, affection, loyalty. Lovers: hostility, indifference, strangeness, peace, affection, affection. Brothers: hostility, indifference, strangeness, chance meeting, casual acquaintance, affection. There will be hidden paths in the intimacy system in this update. Players are requested to explore them on their own. At the same time, special modes and mysterious rewards will be unlocked when each path reaches its limit. When the intimacy level of the pet reached loyal, the taming mode or a quality contract could be activated. Couples can be unlocked when their intimacy level reaches affection. Unlocked, exact opening time unknown. Brothers can be unlocked when their intimacy level reaches affection. Unlocked, exact opening time unknown. Official notification. This time, the intimacy system can be used in a wide range. Players are requested to explore other functions on their own. The intimacy system between players will not be unlocked for the time being. Stay tuned and enjoy the game. Seeing the updated content, the players immediately started a heated discussion in the forum. Watermelon_Taro. The intimacy system doesn't apply to players. It only applies to the natives in the game. Wiping nosebleed emoji. Looks like it's time to build a good impression with the ladies from the Wood Spirit clan. Crayon_Shinchan replied to Watermelon_Taro. Can't you see that the marriage system is not unlocked yet? Based on my experience in the forums and my understanding of the officials, the marriage system is probably still a long way off. Shiwelly_the_strongest. I'm sighing. Initially, I wanted to make a good impression with my boyfriend and get married in the game. Maybe I could even get some extra rewards in the game. I didn't expect that the game would be closed to players. Do I have to make a good impression with the guys from the Wood Spirit clan? Slightly embarrassed, Crayon_Shinchan replied to Shiwelly_the_strongest. Reward? It's good enough that they didn't give you a title. I'm guessing that the evildoer group is a group of single dogs. Laughing emoji. Roasting Chong, you while hugging the jade rabbit. That's pretty good. This can be considered as an indirect activation of the pet system. However, it needs to be done step by step and take the path of emotional development. However, this is what a pet is. Those that were caught and tamed by force and then made to participate in battles were not pets. At most, they were slaves. They had no emotions to speak of. The word pet was the key. Without emotions, what kind of pet was it? Humanized design, awesome. Invincible_loneliness. I went online and took a look. I realized that there's a special column in my intimacy list. I clicked on it and saw that the demonic god and I are in a master-disciple relationship. Tong Gua's arms akimbo. Lu Wu smiled faintly when he saw the player's comments. This update was not considered a major update. It could only be considered as an optimization of the game. However, the players were very excited because the appearance of the intimacy level had once again enriched the gameplay. Soon, a professional player started to create an intimacy summary post in the forum. He started to collect the problems that the players encountered during the process of upgrading their intimacy levels and the difficulty of upgrading their intimacy levels with the NPCs. He planned to compile an illustrated handbook for the players to use. The professional players' actions received feedback from many players. A large number of players shared their intimacy lists in the post. At the same time, they shared the problems that they encountered during the process of upgrading their intimacy levels. The players spent 5 days sorting out the players' intimacy lists and comments. Finally, he wrote an analysis post to help the players understand the NPCs better. This post also attracted Lu Wu's attention. He did not know whether to laugh or cry when he saw the post creator's comments on the NPCs. Tonghua, free and easy personality, loves money and alcohol. He doesn't like people who are fake. If you want to make an impression, you either have to spend money or have a similar personality. But you have to be able to drink. Difficulty, 5 stars, the Rock Ghost, less data. However, the Rock Ghost has a good attitude towards the players after officially becoming a member of Beiki. At least, his personality is better than Tonghua's. He's a mature and steady type. Be careful if you want to make an impression and trigger the final reward. Difficulty, 7 stars, the Sea King, lots of data. However, all the players provided are hostile. None of them are indifferent. Don't even think about it. Although he's very popular, it's impossible to make an impression. Difficulty, 10 stars, the Hydra, doesn't like to talk. He's indifferent to the players. However, there are a few players who are friendly with the Hydra. It's hard to say if you want to make an impression. Difficulty, 7 stars, the ladies from the Wood Spirit clan, super passionate. He's learned to complain after interacting with us players for a long time. Shame. However, the hospitality of the ladies from the Wood Spirit clan is a sign of friendliness. According to my calculations, it's extremely difficult to develop into a couple. It's almost impossible because the Wood Spirit clan doesn't have the custom of marrying outsiders. Difficulty, 9 stars. However, everyone can choose to become brothers. This doesn't matter if they're male or female. The difficulty is only 2 stars. The demonic god. Seems like only Boss Guyu is related. The others don't even have an intimacy bar. Stars, Xiaotun, the 9 luminaries brothers, Little Sha. This post contained a total of more than 300 natives of the underworld who had contact with the players. It was a preliminary calculation of the natives' attitudes towards the players. At the same time, it evaluated whether these NPCs were suitable to make an impression based on the difficulty of 1 to 10 stars. This professional player's post was of great help to the players. Soon, many like-minded players joined in the calculation. They planned to help him carry out the calculation that required a lot of effort and time. Lu Wu was sincerely gratified to see the players helping each other. He had also seen several players asking the original poster who volunteered to do the calculation, illustration, manga, and map the same question below the post. Why do you have to do such a thankless thing? However, their answers were basically the same. It's because of love. Chapter 308. Kuelong Ocean, Kankuan Island. The Sea King's figure hovered in midair while he was surrounded by members of the United Army. They were all staring at the Sea King in the center, and the atmosphere was solemn. Tian Kun, how dare you betray me? The Sea King said gloomily as he glanced at Tian Kun, who was among the crowd. I had no choice. I'm afraid that Tian Kun Nation's 10,000 years of foundation will be destroyed if I continue to follow you. You started the war, so let it end with your death. The Sea King's aura of death surged when he heard Tian Kun. The reason why he came to Kankuan Island with Tian Kun was that Tian Kun told him about the ancient Nethersea Nation's ruins, an ancient nation before the 8 nations split, on this island. The Sea King was naturally very concerned about this, and asked Tian Kuan why he didn't explore the ancient ruins himself. However, Tian Kuan said that he wasn't strong enough and couldn't even enter the ruins without reaching the Ghost Emperor realm. The Sea King was tempted. After all, obtaining the ancient nation's artifact from the ruins would definitely play a key role in the war. However, he didn't come here directly. Instead, he asked the other lords and his trusted aides from their subordinate forces. According to them, there were indeed ruins of the Nethersea nation on Conquin Island, but it was extremely difficult to enter. Not only did one need to be above the Ghost Emperor realm, but one also needed to possess the bloodline of the Nethersea nation's descendants as the key to open the ruins. After understanding everything, the Sea King finally decided to take action. He ordered his subordinates to continue commanding the battle between the Sea King Navy and the Langia Island Coalition Army, and asked Tian Kuan to lead the way to open the ruins himself. After all, he was a descendant of the Mu-Tay nation, which fulfilled the requirements of being a descendant of the Nethersea nation. Moreover, his strength had also reached the Ghost Emperor realm, so he was fully qualified to open the ruins. However, what the Sea King did not expect was that all of this was a trap. When he entered the Conquin Island, the demon captive formation that had been set up long ago rose up, and the leaders of various forces in the Kowloon Ocean were waiting there. It was obviously a premeditated encirclement. The Sea King already knew about Tian Kuan's betrayal. Sea King, you shouldn't have come to the Kowloon Ocean. Today's ending was destined the day you established your nation. The Langia Island Lord laughed as he looked at the Sea King who had fallen into the trap. The Sea King did not speak. His body was surrounded by the aura of death, and the death's light wheel appeared on his forehead. It circled around his body and gradually expanded. This battle was unavoidable. Although he was confident in his own strength, the enemy was clearly prepared. It would be difficult to break out of the encirclement in this battle, but he was unperturbed. The moment he became the Death Lord, he had already experienced death once, so he was fearless this time. Sea King, I'll give you a chance. Destroy your cultivation and get back to the Void Ocean, and we'll let you go. The Lord of Langia Island spoke again. In fact, he was also afraid of the Sea King's strength. After all, the Sea King was a Ghost Emperor realm expert. If they were to fight, although they could win, they would definitely lose a lot of strength. So, Langia gave the Sea King a choice. Upon hearing this, the Sea King could not help but sneer. I've long heard that the Lord of Langia Island is a sly old fox. Indeed, it's true. No wonder you're a guy who got to the position by playing tricks. You're really shameless. Good for nothing. The Lord of Langia Island's expression changed abruptly. He had always tried to downplay his past, and as his strength increased, no one would mention the past anymore. However, the Sea King had mercilessly dug up his dark past, not giving him any face at all. Does the process matter? As long as I can succeed, it's worth it. The Lord of Langia Island's expression gradually turned ferocious as he understood the Sea King's attitude. I agree. As long as I can succeed, the process doesn't matter. The Sea King suddenly laughed. Then, he pointed at Langia Island, and the Death's Light wheel that was circling around his body suddenly shot toward the Lord of Langia Island. Kill! Upon seeing this, the Lord of Langia Island immediately raised the white turtle shell in his hand and faced the Sea King. The battle broke out immediately. The huge formation that enveloped Conquin Island shone brightly. Chains made of runes automatically formed in the space within the formation, and they entangled the Sea King. Shimo Island. Hei Sui, who was looking at the map of the sea area and preparing for the battle, suddenly felt a jolt in his heart. He immediately turned to look at the direction of Conquin Island. Then, he quickly took out a crystal that was made of death chi. When he saw the words that appeared on the crystal, his expression suddenly changed. He turned to look at Sha Shui and the others who were beside him. This is bad. Tian Kuan has betrayed us, and the monarch is surrounded. The other lord's expression also changed when they heard this. How did you know? The monarch gave me this before he left, saying that he would send me a message. I didn't understand what it meant at that time, but now it shows that the monarch has sent a message said He Sui as he pointed at the Death Chi crystal and the words that appeared on it. It seems like the monarch has predicted that this trip might be dangerous. Sha Shui squinted his eyes slightly. But we have to go because the ancient ruins might be the key to changing the outcome of the battle, added Lan Hushan at that moment. Gather the troops and get ready to send out the troops. The monarch is the key to our victory, said He Sui as he stood up and prepared to mobilize the troops. At that moment, Lan Hushan suddenly stopped He Sui. Black Lord, what do you think the chances of us winning this battle are? He Sui frowned. What do you mean? The chances of us winning this battle is at most 30%. If we lose, our Sea Nation will be destroyed. Tian Kuan has made his choice. It's our turn now. Lan Hushan's words instantly caused the atmosphere to become heavy. Needless to say, Lan Hushan's words had moved everyone. They were forced to be loyal to the Sea King, but now they had a chance to break away from the Sea King. As long as the Sea King was dead, they would continue to be free. Their thoughts of reviving their nation were shaken at that moment. If they did not send troops to help, the Sea King's chances of survival would be slim. The collapse of the Mutesi nation would be a foregone conclusion. However, if they sent their troops to help and save the Sea King, their chances of winning would be less than 30%. Lan Hushan and the others seemed to have an answer to this question. However, He Sui suddenly punched the table. I know what all of you are thinking. However, all of you must remember that the respect you receive from the outside world is given by the king. Without him, we would never be able to squeeze into the ranks of the top forces in the Kowloon Ocean. I know the pros and cons, but I also know that no matter what, we share the same ancestor. Even if the Sea King becomes the king, he is still one of us. He Sui glanced at the crowd after he finished speaking, then left angrily. The rest of the people looked at each other. He Sui was the last one to agree to be loyal to the Sea King, but now he was the most persistent one. They all understood the logic, but after living for tens of thousands of years, they only cared about benefits. When they suddenly heard He Sui say that they shared the same ancestor and were one of them, they initially thought it was ridiculous, but after thinking about it carefully, they fell silent. If the Sea King was not one of them, would they have surrendered? If they were only threatened by force, would they surrender to any force that was stronger than them? Obviously, this was impossible. Therefore, they had to admit that the reason why they surrendered to the Sea King back then was because they were on the same side. What do all of you think? Lan Hushan looked at the crowd and asked. The Nether Sea Nation used to be the overlord of the three seas, but now it has fallen to the state we are in. This is probably the last chance. If we lose, we'll really lose. Maybe we won't have the chance to restore our nation in the future. It's better to fight with our lives on the line. Sha Shui, who was the most cowardly among them, said, surprising everyone. Either glory or perish, what a difficult choice. But I'll King choose perish. The war has already begun. Don't leave any regrets. Lan Yu, who was silent at the side, said, yeah, if we can't rise in this war, then our nation will gradually fall even if we choose to live on. I choose to join the war. After expressing their opinions, they stood up and were ready to go to the Sea King's aid. At this moment, a general suddenly rushed in from outside and knelt on one knee after entering the inner hall. Lords, the Langya Island Coalition Army is attacking. They are gathering 5 nautical miles away, and it seems like they want to seal off the sea. Upon hearing this, the few of them looked very solemn. As expected, they have prepared for everything. They have already considered that we will send our troops there. Lan Hushan's eyes suddenly turned red. What should we do? Although the monarch is powerful and can hold on for a long time, we can't go there at all. Sha Shui was also anxious. Don't worry, let me think about it. All right, the player clan. Lan Hushan suddenly raised his head and said, yes, the player clan, they have the ability to support us. Sha Shui quickly added, Sha Shui, go and inform the player clan. We will gather our troops to fight against the coalition army. All right, Sha Shui quickly responded. Then he levitated into the air and suddenly shot toward the void ocean. Time was running out. At this moment, the few lords were busy. Whether the Sea King could survive this war or not would be the key factor in the future direction of the war. Under such circumstances, they could only pin their hopes on the players. There was no other way at all. An hour later, a post appeared on the forum. Something big has happened. The Sea King is going to die. Coordinates are Conquin Island in the Kowloon Ocean. Requesting support. OP. Colored glass pearl content. My team members and I were just about to harass the Langia Island Coalition Army station here at the border of the Kowloon Ocean. However, we found out that the Coalition Army had retreated. At that time, we were very surprised and didn't understand why they retreated. So, we continued to sail forward for a distance. Then, we met the Sea King's subordinate, Lord Sha Shui. He told us that the Sea King was ambushed and is fighting with all his might. He will die at any time. Moreover, all their troops are being held back by the Langia Island Coalition Army. They can't spare any strength to support us. They need our help now. Everyone gather. Attached is Sha Shui's video. Watermelon_Turo. Damn, we haven't even harvested them and they're going to die. This is intolerable. We're coming now. Shueli_the_strongest. These pests are trying to harm our seedlings. This is too much. What do they think the fourth disaster is? War. Assassin_Creed. Rescue plan activated. Calling the members of the fourth disaster in the land of Baki. It's time to bring disaster and panic to our opponents. Crayon_Shinchan. We're going to save the Sea King. Even Jesus can't keep him. Laughing emoji. Roasting_Jade_Hair_ while _hugging_Chong. Hang in there, Sea King boss. The disaster army will join the battlefield soon. Calling all players to join the war. The forum was in an uproar. Basically, all the players received the news that the Sea King was going to die soon. The players did not hate the Sea King at all. After all, to them, it was just a game. As the most popular villain, the Sea King had many fans among the players. Therefore, the players could not sit still when they knew that the Sea King was ambushed and was about to die. At this moment, the Calamity Army gathered again. Chapter 309. After the operation to rescue the Sea King was officially launched, the players did not gather at the Lioli coast due to the lack of time. They planned to find a chance to consolidate their forces in the Kowloon Ocean. They summoned their ships and sailed straight to Conquin Island in the Kowloon Ocean. Many players who were wandering in the Void Ocean set off immediately after receiving the news. Even so, the number of players participating in the joint operation this time was far more than before, reaching more than 20 million. After all, this time was different from the past. Time was of the essence, as the Sea King could fall at any time. Even many lifestyle players joined in. Now, they could only pray that the Sea King could hold on until they arrived. Kowloon Ocean, Conquin Island. The battle had lasted for more than 2 hours. The Sea King's valiance had obviously far exceeded the expectations of the leaders of the forces present. Even with the support of the Demon Imprisoning Formation, they could not do anything to the Sea King. However, they still had the confidence to take down the Sea King in this battle. After all, as long as the Sea King could not break through the encirclement, he would exhaust his energy sooner or later, and that would be the moment of his death. However, facing such a valiant Sea King, they dared not confront him head-on at this stage. They could only use the formation to restrain him. After all, no one wanted to be the sacrificial lamb for victory, so they could only resort to guerrilla warfare. Within the Demon Imprisoning Formation that enveloped the entire island, countless ribbons formed from energy connected to the bodies of the leaders of the various forces below. Relying on the energy supplied by their bodies, countless shackles were formed out of thin air within the formation and moved toward the Sea King. Although the Sea King was not as valiant as Mu Zhiguang, he had obtained all the power of the Death Lord, and his strength had reached the intermediate Ghost Emperor stage. He could still find a chance to fight back when he was surrounded. The Death's light wheel circled and danced in the formation. While breaking the rune chains, it launched attacks downward from time to time. Every attack would make the leaders of the united forces panic. Looking at the countless chains that were generated from the surroundings, the Sea King's face turned gloomy. He raised his hand and pressed down. Suddenly, a black hole that connected to the Western Death Realm was formed in the void. Roars of monsters could be heard from within. Figures gushed out from the void and pounced toward the leaders below. At the same time, the circular death passage was constantly devouring the space within the formation and slowly expanding. Cut off its connection with the void. Langya roared when he saw the void passage that was constantly surging with undead creatures. When the leaders heard this, they all activated the energy in their bodies and sent it into the formation through their spirit chains. The array sped up, and light flickered outside the array. The space inside the array began to solidify, and the tunnel of death in midair also began to distort. The monsters that surged out from the tunnel were all severed at the waist by the spatial energy, losing their combat strength. Upon seeing this, the Sea King shrouded his right arm with the power of death, turning it pitch black. He then reached out and pressed on the twisting black hole, continuously injecting the power of death in his body into the black hole to resist the blocking power of the demon imprisoning formation. The Sea King gradually began to feel strained as he fought against everyone by himself in this stalemate. This kind of consumption was obviously extremely disadvantageous to him. Just as the Sea King was about to give up, he saw a flash of light outside the formation. Then, the entire formation seemed to shake. Sea King boss, we're coming. Hold on. As the voice rang out, a huge battleship leaped up from the sea outside the island and slammed into the formation. The battleship collapsed with a loud bang, causing the formation to tremble slightly. Coming. Jump, Black Pearl. Hit them. Another battleship leaped up from the sea and collided with the formation that enveloped the entire Conquin Island. One after another, the battleships crashed into the formation. At this moment, the players arrived one after another. The battleship leap, which was originally used for the battleships to evade attacks, had become a method of attack for many players. They were using this arrogant method to inform the Sea King and the leaders of all the forces within the formation that their fourth disaster had arrived. Sea King boss, hold on. Kill them all. Sea King boss, I'm your fan. I'm risking my life to save you today. Aren't you touched? Kill. Break the formation and kill all the pests inside. As the players spoke, countless energy bombs were fired outside the island. They were as dazzling as fireworks, crashing onto the formation. The arrival of the players gave the leaders of the Allied forces a headache. They had deployed all their forces to Shinma Island in order to seal off the sea so that the Sea King Navy could not come to support them. They wanted to end the battle quickly and take down the Sea King. However, the Sea King was more difficult to deal with than they had imagined. They could not take him down in a short time. Instead, the Allied forces of the Sea King Navy had arrived first. Faced with this situation, Langya roared, "Don't be afraid of death. Take down the Sea King with all your might. Don't fail at the last step." As he spoke, Langya made the first move. The energy in his body surged into the energy belt that was connected to the formation. The runes within the formation sped up. Seeing this, the leaders of the forces around them became ruthless. They activated the energy in their bodies and planned to kill the Sea King with one blow. Although the Sea King was also surprised that the players would come to his aid at this crucial moment, he did not have the time to think too much. Faced with an endless stream of runes, the Sea King began to struggle with all his might. This was also the time for him to counterattack. While the leaders of the forces were activating the formation with all their might, it was also the time when their defense was at its weakest. The Death's Light will swam rapidly at this moment. 2 people were killed by the Death's Light wheel. Don't be distracted. Don't be afraid of death. You won't have another chance in the future. Langya shouted again, afraid that death would cause the others to restrain their strength. The rune chains in the formation increased, to the point that the Sea King could not cut them all off. The chains would disappear when they came into contact with the Sea King's body. They merged into his body, causing the circulation of the death energy in the Sea King's body to become sluggish. The situation was extremely bad. The Sea King struggled frantically, trying to expel the sealing energy in his body. However, the power in his body was increasing, and the seal was getting stronger. However, 3 or 4 people were killed by the Death's light wheel. However, at this moment, the leaders of the forces could no longer care about that. They activated the formation with all their might in order to kill the Sea King. At the same time, the number of players outside was increasing. It could be said that they had surrounded the entire island. Every player was activating their strongest attack to break the formation and help the Sea King to fight against the enemy. At the southern corner of the teleportation array, a crowd of players surged forward, all of them attacking the teleportation array with all their might. Suddenly, another ghost ship arrived, slamming into the teleportation array. As the ghost ship shattered, a player leaped out from within. Just as his body was about to fall into the sea, a huge figure appeared on the surface of the sea. It then broke out of the water and carried him on its back. Baizé patted little Kuin, who was under him, and pointed at the demon-trapping formation. Little Kuin, attack with your strongest ability. Upon hearing that, little Kuin's expression became determined. He took a deep breath and swung his tail quickly. Then, he crashed into the defensive wall outside the formation. Little Kuin was dazzled by the impact, and Baizé fell into the water. Little Kuin, who came back to his senses, dived into the water and carried Baizé up. Then, he swung his tail again with a determined expression and launched a second attack. Stop! 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 Baizé quickly stopped little Kuin's attack. He suddenly recalled that little Kuin did not seem to have any combat skills other than his 5 talents. However, little Kuin was already close to him, and he could not stop at all. Hence, he crashed into the defensive wall again. The man and little Kuin were dizzy from the impact. Little Kuin's belly was facing upwards, and his eyes were rolling back. Baizé quickly swam to little Kuin's side. He looked at little Kuin's attributes and realized that his HP was less than 15%. He was so angry that he laughed at little Kuin's stupidity, but he felt helpless. At the same time, in the deepest part of the Kuelong Ocean, a beast that had been sleeping for a long time suddenly opened its eyes. At this moment, he felt an aura, the aura of an overlord. Although the aura was very weak, it was still the aura of an overlord. The entire underworld sea had such a law of survival. The position of the overlord of the ocean was never inherited by one's own descendants. It was fought for. Every creature that had the potential to become an overlord would enter a new ocean to adapt to the law of survival after reaching adulthood. Then, they would grow step by step until they killed the old overlord of that ocean and seized the overlord's position. Tao Wu originally wanted little Kuin to walk the path of an overlord, but in the end, he let little Kuin choose his own future. However, it was different now because little Kuin had entered the Kuelong Ocean and entered the territory of another overlord. The overlord aura that he leaked had also alerted the Kuelong overlord who was lurking in the depths of the Kuelong Ocean. At this moment, the Kuelong king had awakened, and the new overlord from the outside world had declared war. With its scarlet eyes blinking, Kuelong's huge body moved slowly. It raised its head and let out a loud roar before swimming quickly towards the area where little Kuin was. Looking at little Kuin, who was gradually recovering, Baizé rubbed his head. Little Kuin had a pitiful expression on his face. Obviously, the 2 collisions had made him feel terrible. Chirp! Little Kuin let out a low cry after taking a glance at the array. No, no, no. You're very powerful, but don't hit me. Don't be childish. Looking at little Kuin, who refused to admit defeat, Baizé quickly shook his head to stop him. Otherwise, he was afraid that little Kuin would hit himself to death. Chapter 310. Kuelong Ocean, Kuin Island. The battle inside the formation was still going on. The players became more anxious as they saw the Sea Kings struggle, getting weaker and weaker. They attacked the defensive wall with all their might. However, the demon-trapping formation was set up by dozens of Ghost Kings and hundreds of Ghost Commanders. It was impossible for the players to break through it in a short period of time. The Sea King looked ferocious. He felt that the circulation of the power of death was becoming more and more difficult as the power of the seal surged into his body. He knew that he would die if this continued. The Sea King looked at Langya, who was sneering, and Tian Kuan. He suddenly let out a long roar as the power of death in his body boiled. At this moment, the Sea King cut off his consciousness to control the power of death, allowing it to spread and operate freely. In this state, his eyes turned red and his perception of his surroundings became blurry. The desire to kill kept reverberating in his mind. Roar! The power of death forcefully broke the power of the seal, allowing the Sea King to fight again. At this moment, the Death's Light wheel that was motionless flashed with a dim light again. It sped through the formation and quickly reaped lives. He can't hold on much longer. He's just putting up a last-ditch struggle. Langya roared as he looked at the Sea King above. The leaders of the Allied forces knew that all their efforts would be wasted if they gave up halfway. They could only grit their teeth and persevere. The Sea King had completely lost his ability to think. Under such circumstances, his mind was only filled with the desire to kill. Although he was trapped in midair by the power of the seal, the Death's Light wheel was still killing according to his thoughts. Outside the formation, the players were shocked to see the Sea King regain his ability to fight back. They quickly accelerated their attacks on the formation. At this moment, the Sea King's life was in their hands. Hence, the players gradually went crazy. Many players even bought enhancement potions from the shop without hesitation to strengthen their attributes just to help the Sea King escape as soon as possible. At the southern corner of the demon trapping formation, a large number of players gathered there to attack the defensive wall. However, at this moment, they realized that the water level around them suddenly rose and a huge shadow appeared at the bottom of the sea. Everyone be careful. Something is coming up. The players who noticed something was wrong immediately warned the surrounding players. This shocked the players, and they lowered their heads to look below. As the shadow approached, the water temperature suddenly rose rapidly. Some players even had the word -1 appear above their heads. Disperse, it's coming. As the players shouted, the figure at the bottom of the sea suddenly broke through the water curtain, and a huge body emerged in front of the players. This creature had 2 horns on its head and was shaped like a flood dragon. 2 long green whiskers grew from its mouth, and the red scales on its body flickered with a dazzling luster under the sunlight, giving off an extremely oppressive feeling. Roar! Kuelong roared into the sky the moment he appeared. The surrounding players' HPs rapidly decreased. Some of the more fragile players were even instantly killed by the roar. While the players were horrified, they quickly activated their analysis ability on Kuelong. They wanted to know the origins of this creature that had suddenly appeared. Kuelong King, Sea Spirit. Creature details, a descendant of the divine beast from the endless ocean. 400,000 years ago, it defeated the old overlord with overwhelming strength. After devouring the old overlord, it successfully advanced to become the new overlord of the ocean and renamed the Ocean King. Its strength has reached the demigod realm. Biological characteristics: brutal, arrogant special characteristics, basic comprehension of water law, basic comprehension of fire law biological status, god-breaking stage, about to break through to the god realm, success rate unknown. The players were dumbfounded when they saw the creature's information. It turned out to be another creature at the level of the Sea Spirit. Moreover, this overlord's introduction seemed to be even more terrifying than Tao Wu. It really scared the players. Although the players often joked that they would sooner or later catch a sea spirit and sell it for a lot of money, it was not the case when they actually saw it. After all, the players' strength was not worth mentioning in front of this ancient creature. The gap between them could not be made up by numbers. At that moment, Kuelong King's crimson eyes looked at little Kuan, who was not far away, with a murderous glint in his eyes. It had been 100,000 years since a new overlord had challenged him. Now, he wanted to see which creature's descendant had the guts to challenge him. However, when he saw Kuelong King's gaze, little Kuan swung his tail like a frightened rabbit and hid behind Bai Zhe. He even submerged most of his body into the water, only revealing a pair of eyes to secretly peek at Kuelong King. Seeing little Kuan's fearful face, Kuelong King thought he was mistaken. After sensing the source of the overlord's aura again, his eyes focused on little Kuan. Not yet an adult? At that moment, The murderous glint in Kuolong King's eyes disappeared. He seemed a little stunned. In the underworld sea, even the descendants of the divine beasts with unlimited potential would only be allowed by their parents to enter a new sea to compete for hegemony after they reached adulthood. After all, underage only represented death. However, little Kuan in front of him could not be considered an adult. He could only be considered a baby. Obviously, Kuelong King could not understand why such a young overlord dared to challenge him. Who are your parents? Kuelong's murderous intent gradually faded as he looked at little Kuan. After all, a baby divine beast like little Kuan could not pose any threat to him. It could be said that it would be a piece of cake for him to kill little Kuan. Upon hearing that, little Kuan's head slowly emerged from the water and looked at Kuelong King with fear. He continued to hide behind Bai Zhe, but his huge body was not something that Bai Zhe could hide at all. Kuelong King's eyes widened when he saw this. He opened his mouth and inhaled. A huge suction force appeared on top of little Kuan's head, and he flew towards Kuelong. Slap! After grabbing little Kuan, Kuelong began to look down at the little divine beast. His heart was filled with curiosity. Little Kuan began to struggle with all his might like a little tadpole. However, his struggle was completely futile under the Kuelong King's strength. His descendant? No, there's also Hai Meng. Kuelong King's eyes were filled with astonishment when he felt little Kuan's aura. The territories of these two overlords were adjacent to the Kuelong Sea, so he was naturally familiar with them. Little guy, are you sure you want to challenge me? Kuelong looked at little Kuan and could not help but laugh. Seeing that his struggle was futile, little Kuan immediately revealed his two front teeth and bit the Kuelong King's hand. However, his strength could not even bite through the scales on the surface of the Kuelong King's body, let alone break his defense. At this moment, Bai Zhe was also panicking. He was afraid that the Kuelong King would hurt little Kuan, so he quickly swam towards the Kuelong King. However, before he could get close, he was sent flying by a huge wave. After spending a lot of effort and realizing that his attack did not work at all, little Kuan suddenly deflated in the Kuelong King's hand like a deflated balloon. Little guy, let me ask you, are you sure you want to challenge me? Kuelong King had no desire to fight when he saw little Kuan's timid look. However, this was the law of survival in the sea. This creature with the potential to be an overlord had entered his territory. According to the rules, he was already an enemy, and the Kuelong King could either devour or kill him. However, little Kuan was just a juvenile creature. The rules were applicable to adult creatures. This was the first time that a juvenile had come, so the Kuelong King did not know how to deal with it. If it was an adult creature, Kuelong would not hesitate to attack it, regardless of whether it was the descendant of Tao Wu or anyone else. This was the rule of the sea hegemony. However, if it was a juvenile creature, it would be very difficult for the Kuelong King. Firstly, his pride did not allow him to do so. Secondly, the rules of the sea hegemony did not apply to a juvenile creature. After killing it, Tao Wu and Hai Meng would definitely come to seek revenge. After all, it was a violation of the rules. Therefore, looking at little Kuan in his palm, the Kuelong King felt that it was very difficult. Let me go, I want to duel with you. Little Kuan, who was initially timid, suddenly became angry when he saw Bai Zhe being slapped away by the huge wave. His body began to inflate again. Are you sure? The Kuelong King's expression froze when he heard little Kuan's words. Such words were not said casually. In the Kuelong King's opinion, it was a declaration of war by the Overlord. It was a contract battle that was watched by the underworld sea god. Ow, I'll bite you to death. Little Kuan shook his head angrily and bit down hard again. At this moment, a shadow of a sharp fang of an unknown creature appeared on top of the Kuelong King and little Kuan's heads. Then, the two shadows of the fang collided and dissipated, turning into two streams of energy that drilled into the Kuelong King and little Kuan's bodies. In the distance, Bai Zhe, who had just emerged from the waves, also received a game notification. Game notification. The NPC Little Kuan that is bound to you has activated the Sea Hegemony contract. Frowny face, Sea Hegemony contract. Contract details. Under the witness of the underworld sea god, Little Kuan officially declares war on the Kuelong King, the overlord of the Kuelong Ocean. The winner will receive the blessing of the underworld sea god and become the overlord of the Kuelong Ocean. Contract notification. Since the challenger, Little Kuan, has yet to reach adulthood, the contract will not take effect even though it has been established. The challenge will be carried out after Little Kuan reaches adulthood. Contract notification 2. This challenge is initiated by the descendant of the divine beast, Little Kuan. If Little Kuan does not fulfill the terms of the challenge within the stipulated time after he reaches adulthood, the underworld sea god will deprive him of his natural ability, ocean affinity, and the bloodline of the divine beast. Contract notification 3. This challenge is witnessed by the underworld sea god. After the new overlord succeeds in the challenge, his natural ability, ocean affinity, will be upgraded. Contract notification 4. During Little Kuan's adulthood, the challenged must not hurt the challenger. Haha, little fella, you've got guts to challenge me. Under the witness of the underworld sea god, this contract has been established. We can't go against the sea god's power. I won't hurt you during your adulthood. Hurry up and become an adult. Don't let me down. The Kuelong King burst into laughter as he looked at the confused Little Kuan. Just as he said, this challenge was never a child's play. As long as the new overlord acknowledged him, the underworld sea god would naturally sense it and sign the sea hegemony contract for them. Although Little Kuan was still very young, he was undoubtedly the Kuelong King's enemy. He was an enemy who was qualified to compete with him for hegemony in this ocean. Although Little Kuan did not understand what was going on, the Kuelong King's laughter scared Little Kuan so much that he spat out a bubble subconsciously. Little fella, perhaps your challenge is the opportunity for me to advance to the divine state. Grow up quickly, the Kuelong King said as he placed Little Kuan into the water. His eyes were filled with gratification. After entering the water, Little Kuan quickly swam to Bai Zai's side. He then raised his head and continued to look at the Kuelong King with hostility. He let out a long cry. Chirp! The Kuelong King smiled indifferently. He lowered his head and looked at the surrounding players who were trying their best to attack the demon imprisoning array. He then looked at Little Kuan before he suddenly jumped into the water, setting off a huge wave. As the Kuelong King dived, a crimson tail emerged from the bottom of the water and slapped hard on the defensive wall of the demon imprisoning array. Gotcha! Chapter 3:11. Kuelong's tail swipe left a clear mark on the demon imprisoning array. The entire array did not even have time to transmit the force of the attack before it shattered with a loud bang. The lords who were connected to the formation turned pale at the sight of the demon imprisoning formation's destruction. A few of the weaker lords could not help but vomit blood as the backlash reverberated in their bodies. F***CK. How did the formation break? Quick, quick, quick! Save the Sea King. Kill. Apart from the players in the southern corner, the rest of the players had no idea why the seemingly sturdy formation would suddenly shatter. However, the Sea King's life was more important at this moment. They could not care less. They immediately leaped on a Konkuan island and killed their way into the interior. Langya's face turned pale when he saw the players swarming in from all directions. He did not expect to lose this battle. Retreat! Langya roared angrily. It was extremely disadvantageous for them to continue fighting at this point. As for the other lords, they were all injured and had no desire to continue fighting. They followed Langya and levitated into the sky, flying into the distance. Don't run. Come down. The players would not let them go. They pounced on a lord and attacked it as a group. They would not let it leave. Since they were already here, the players were naturally unwilling to leave. These ghost kings and ghost generals were a huge reward. Moreover, they were all injured. It was the best time to harvest them. The lords of the Alliance army seemed to be in a difficult situation when faced with the frenzied army of players. Apart from the powerful ones who could leave easily, many Ghost Commander lords were being held back by the players. At that moment, a shocking scene occurred. The Sea King, who was in a state of a Death Lord in midair, started to harvest the players' lives with his Death's Light Wheel. The Sea King, who was in a state of massacre, had completely lost his consciousness. All the creatures in front of him were his prey. The death's light will shuttled through the crowd of players and took away many of their lives. F***CK. Sea King, you're too much. Are you kidding me? Is this how you treat your savior? Mother Cur, the Sea King has gone mad. Let's take him down first. Faced with the Sea King, who was on a killing spree, the players naturally would not sit still and wait for their deaths. Suddenly, countless skills were fired into the sky in an attempt to knock the Sea King down from the sky. The strength of the Sea King was obviously not something that the players could fight against at this stage of the game. Although the number of their attacks was terrifying, their actual damage was not high. As time passed, a large number of players died and entered the cooldown period for resurrection. At that moment, the players were very angry. After all, this expedition was for the sake of the Sea King. However, the Sea King's actions were rather disappointing. As the battle continued, the body of the Sea King, who was in mid-air, suddenly trembled. The darkness in his eyes slowly faded, and his body fell from the sky, crashing heavily onto the ground. The power of death converged into his body, and the Sea King regained control of his body. The Sea King, who had recovered, spat out a mouthful of blood. He struggled to stand up, but his body was severely injured and he had overexerted himself. He was clearly not as strong as he wished. Cough, cough. At that moment, the Sea King spat out another mouthful of blood. Then he looked around. The memories of the players he had just slaughtered surfaced in his mind, and his expression became complicated. Naturally, he had seen what the players had done just now. However, what he had done was undoubtedly too much. However, the Sea King did not say anything. He coldly glanced at the players around him, waiting for the judgment of fate. Just now, he had killed at least hundreds of thousands of players. With so many people of his race dead, the Sea King already had an answer in his heart as to what was waiting for him. Seeing that the Sea King seemed to have regained his consciousness, the players were a little stunned. They surrounded the Sea King, but they did not know what to do. Brothers, the Sea King has recovered. What should we do? Don't kill the Sea King. He's a growth-type boss. If he dies now, it will be our loss. Don't forget that he still has the Death Clan with him. What should we do? This is very awkward. We must let him go. We have nurtured him for so long. We can't let everything go to waste. All right, let him go. But how should we let him go? Faced with the Sea King who had regained his consciousness, the players began to whisper in the live chat channel, discussing how to deal with the heavily injured Sea King. After a stalemate of about 10 minutes, the players came to a conclusion in the live chat channel. Therefore, under the Sea King's astonished expression, a player who was standing not far away from him suddenly grabbed his left chest in horror. He knelt on the ground with a pale face. Then, with a thud, he fell face first onto the ground and stopped moving. What the F***CK? There's a mysterious force devouring my consciousness. It hurts. Another player fell to the ground with a pale face. He even twitched a few times before he suddenly stopped moving. Oh my God, what a terrifying force. Is it a god? My heart is going to explode. Who is secretly plotting against me? Damn it, I can't take it anymore. I can feel a mysterious force erode in my body. I can't control my body anymore. What a terrifying force. I don't want to die. Why is there only darkness in front of me? I can feel my life slipping away. I'm getting closer and closer to death. Bastard, I don't want to die. In front of the Sea King's dumbfounded expression, the players fell to the ground one by one in horror. This made the Sea King subconsciously nervous, thinking that there was really a terrifying existence in the dark. As the players fell in droves, the Sea King's nerves were stretched to the extreme. His eyes constantly swept across the surroundings, looking for the killer hiding in the dark. However, as he looked, the Sea King soon felt that something was wrong. Other than those who had good acting skills, some of the players' death performance really made the Sea King dumbfounded. For example, after a player finished shouting his lines, he suddenly plunged his head into a pile of sand on the beach. As a result, when a player behind him fell, the long sword in his hand accidentally stabbed into his butt. The Sea King clearly saw the dead player's body tremble. There were even more players who shouted, "I'm dead. ah, ah, before they died and fell to the ground. The Sea King felt that his intelligence was being insulted by the prolonged ah, ah, ah. In less than a moment, all the players on Conquin Island were dead. The Sea King did not want to talk anymore. He felt that he had never seen such fake acting skills. Just now, he even saw a player who said that he was devoured by the evil god scratching his, but when he was bitten by the poisonous mosquitoes on the island. Although he did not understand what the players were doing, the Sea King naturally did not want to die. As his physical strength gradually recovered, he endured the discomfort and struggled to stand up. He limped to the shore and jumped into the sea. Then, a white wave appeared on the surface of the sea and slowly moved to the distance. After the Sea King left, the players turned over and sat up one by one. At this moment, the live chat channel was even noisier. They were all criticizing each other for their poor acting skills and embarrassing performances. Soon, the players had switched from the live chat channel to the real world. In the end, they all drew their weapons. Many guilds that were already in conflict with each other could not help but start killing each other. Lu Wu, who was sitting behind the scenes and observing the scene, could not help but cover his face and feel embarrassed for them. Chapter 3:12. After the battle on Conquin Island, the Sea King managed to escape with the help of the players. The players played a crucial role in this battle. Without them, the Sea King would not have been able to extricate himself from the predicament and would eventually fall. After the battle, the Sea King returned to Shinma Island with mixed feelings. His past hatred and the help he received from the players intertwined in his mind. He had to admit that his hatred for the players had faded, but he still did not let go of his hatred, because he swore that he would definitely take revenge. After the battle, other than a few guild members who fought each other on Conquin Island due to long-standing conflicts, the rest of the players began to sail back to Baiki. When the army of players crossed the border of the Kowloon Ocean and entered the Void Ocean, Tao Wu, who was in a deep sleep, suddenly opened his eyes. At this moment, he felt an overlord's aura entering his territory. Thinking that it was a challenge, Tao Wu raised his head with a ferocious look in his eyes. The overlord's challenge would end with the death of one of the parties. Tao Wu knew this very well and was even more prepared for battle. However, he immediately felt that something was wrong. This was because the aura was very familiar, but it seemed to be tainted with something else. Tao Wu's eyes gradually widened as he sensed it. Little Kuan, the sea hegemony contract. Tao Wu was dumbfounded. He finally realized why Little Kuan's aura had changed. It was because his body was tainted with the aura of the underworld sea god. This also meant that Little Kuan had challenged the overlords of other seas under the witness of the underworld sea god. Tao Wu trembled with anger as he thought of this. You're really something. Little Kuan, who was still in his infancy state, dared to challenge the overlords of other seas. Although the news was unbelievable, the underworld sea god's aura was unmistakable. Tao Wu clenched his teeth, feeling aggrieved and terrified. With such a stupid son, Lao AI felt mentally and physically exhausted. However, Little Kuan was his son after all, so he could not ignore this matter. Tao Wu immediately got up and swam toward the area where Little Kuan was. On this day, Lu Wu was browsing the posts on the official website. At this moment, a black hole suddenly appeared beside him. Then a small hand appeared and pulled him in. However, Lu Wu did not panic because this was the power of the artifact. Apart from him, only Bei Li could use the power of the artifact. After his figure appeared in the artifact space, Lu Wu's attention was immediately attracted by a remnant page that was floating in the artifact space. At this moment, this remnant page was burning fiercely. Golden veined patterns slowly appeared amidst the burning, flickering with dazzling golden light. At the same time, countless balls of soul power in the surroundings were constantly surging into the flames, seemingly aiding the combustion. What are they trying to do? Lu Wu glanced at the rapidly decreasing soul coins in his inventory and quickly turned his head to look at Bei Li, who was wearing a white coat. This is the true form of the remnant page of the human emperor's mirror. Bei Li laughed as she looked at the burning remnant page. What's the use? Lu Wu asked as he looked at the golden lines that were gradually becoming clearer on the remnant page. His heart ached as he looked at the soul coins that were decreasing rapidly. Hearing this, Bailey squinted her eyes and smiled. Do you still want to cultivate the Dark Emperor Codex? Lu Wu quickly shook his head. What a joke. After knowing that the Dark Emperor Codex relied on countless transformations to temper one's divine sense and physical body, Lu Wu had completely given up on this cultivation method. After all, transformations were the most annoying. Especially after the few months of transforming into a cat, Lu Wu was traumatized. He almost thought that he was really a pet cat. Although the cultivation method was powerful, the process was too tortuous. Lu Wu felt that his little heart could not take it. Actually, the Dark Emperor Codex is quite good. This cultivation method combines the strengths of all the divine beasts. When you cultivate it to the highest level, it is equivalent to combining the bloodline power of all the divine beasts. It is a codex that can help you become an emperor. However, I think you have a better choice now. Hearing this, Lu Wu's heart skipped a beat. He raised his head and looked at the remnant page of the human emperor's mirror that was burning in the air. This is the cultivation method of the human emperor. The human emperor was once the strongest existence in the three realms. This cultivation method is better than the Dark Emperor Codex. It is very suitable for you. Bailey nodded solemnly. How many soul coins do I need to restore the true form of the remnant page? Lu Wu asked in distress as he looked at the 10 million soul coins that were decreasing rapidly in his inventory. At this rate, I estimate that it will cost 30 million soul coins. Bailey stuck out her tongue and said, That's expensive. Lu Wu's eyes widened. Although his daily soul coin income was increasing, if a remnant page cost 30 million soul coins, Lu Wu could not imagine how much the entire human emperor's mirror would cost. It's not expensive. This is the human emperor. Even Sangshu needs 50 million soul coins to restore, but compared to the human emperor, a ghost emperor like Sangshu is just an ant, not even an ant. They're not on the same level at all. The human emperor's mirror is the core of the human emperor's cultivation. Even this remnant page is worth more than 30 million soul coins. We are only using 30 million soul coins to unseal the true form of the remnant page. Isn't that a huge profit? Lu Wu's face twitched when he heard this. He suddenly realized that he was still a pauper. Looking at the remnant page that was still burning, Lu Wu did not stop it. After all, cultivation was for his own sake, so he was willing to spend the money. At most, he could just take it back from the players. As time passed, the markings on the surface of the remnant page of the human emperor's mirror were all burned away, revealing a piece of paper that shone with a golden luster. Upon seeing this, Bailey waved her hand, and the remnant page of the human emperor's mirror floated into her hand. Lu Wu immediately activated the analysis and looked at the human emperor's mirror, wanting to see the analysis data of this item. Human emperor's mirror, remnant page, item details, contains the law of heaven and earth, pregnant with the holy body and divine treasure item attributes. Lu Wu was dumbfounded when he saw the analyzed details, because he could not figure out what was going on. However, Bailey looked very serious. The law of heaven and pregnant with the divine treasure? I finally know why the human emperor is known as the strongest in the three realms. Lu Wu was speechless. Suddenly, Bailey turned around and looked at Lu Wu. Wu, this remnant page is not used for cultivation. It is a divine treasure. We are in luck. Lu Wu was speechless. At this moment, Lu Wu felt that he was really ignorant. He did not know anything about research and development, and he could not understand anything profound. He felt more and more like a weakling. Bailey looked at the dumbfounded Lu Wu and suddenly sighed. She waved her hand helplessly. Forget it. I will help you direct it into your body. You will understand next. As she spoke, Bailey walked to Lu Wu's side and placed the golden remnant page in his hand. Then, she took a step back. At this moment, the power of the artifact suddenly descended. Lu Wu was shocked to find that the golden remnant page in his hand was slowly melting. It circled around his body like liquid, and then slowly seeped into his body through his pores. Pain, An excruciating pain hit him. Lu Wu's body began to tremble uncontrollably. He could feel the pressure of the artifact on the surface of his body, but he gritted his teeth and endured. As the highest controller of the artifact, although he could cut off the pressure of the artifact at any time, he trusted Bailey. If Bailey really wanted to harm him, he would not have survived until now. As time passed, the pain gradually weakened. When the golden liquid had completely seeped into his body, Lu Wu's eyes turned golden. At this moment, Lu Wu felt a strong force reverberating in his body. His internal organs seemed to be dislocated under the pull of this force, and it was really unbearable. 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, after an unknown amount of time, when the pressure of the artifact dissipated and the trembling in his body disappeared, Lu Wu slowly opened his eyes. A ray of golden light suddenly shot out from his pupils, startling Lu Wu himself. "Take a look at your body's condition. What a great deal." Bailey's sweet voice came from the side. Lu Wu nodded and used analysis on himself. Lu Wu, owner of the battle artifact. Gender, male strength realm. Divine treasure level 1. Ghost commander intermediate mastery abilities. Young by fully comprehended. Physical treasure, young by. With the help of the Dark Emperor Codex, you have obtained the inherited ability and physical strength of the ancient divine beast Ni, June's infant. Physical treasure, the Emperor's mirror technique details. One of the 365 missing parts of the Emperor's mirror. Each part of the divine treasure corresponds to a human acupoint. Every time you obtain a part of the divine treasure, you can carve it into the corresponding acupoint to forge the immortal holy body. Technique details. After connecting multiple acupoints that nurture the divine treasure, the power of this technique will be greatly increased. After all 365 acupoints have nurtured the divine treasure and formed a heavenly cycle, you can transform your physical body into a realm. Opened acupoint. Shenzong acupoint bestowed with supernatural power. Immortal body, immortal soul. With the help of the Shenzong acupoint, the physical body and soul can complement and coexist. After the physical body is damaged, it can be repaired with the help of the soul. After the soul is destroyed, it can be repaired with the help of the physical body. Unnurtured Shenzong acupoints, 364, Baihui, Shunting, Qihai, Qigu, Qimin, Taiyuan. Lu Wu was stunned when he saw his attributes. With just a remnant page, his strength had increased from the early stage of the Ghost Supreme Commander to the middle stage of the Ghost Supreme Commander, and he had even comprehended a supernatural power. The power of the Emperor's mirror was obviously beyond Lu Wu's imagination. So powerful, Lu Wu couldn't help but exclaim. The 30 million soul coins weren't spent in vain, right? I told you we've made a fortune. Bailey stood proudly with her hands on her hips, looking very proud and eager to be praised. Lu Wu nodded excitedly when he heard that. After knowing that the remnant page of the Emperor's mirror could bring such a powerful boost, Lu Wu was completely shocked. When he thought about the many underground research rooms of the Jieda Technology Company that had the remnant page of the Emperor's mirror, he couldn't help but smile maliciously. Chapter 3:13. America, Jieda Technology's underground human experimentation headquarters. As the director of Jieda Technology, Eric was looking at the data on the screen with a serious expression. He seemed to be very surprised. At that moment, the main control panel was displaying a report that was a combination of words and blueprints. Kinetic Mecha Preliminary Design. Creator, Tesla. This report was secretly given to him by the American military's higher-ups that they bribed. When Eric first received this report, he didn't think much of it. After all, in his opinion, it was too difficult to build a kinetic mecha with the current level of technology. He thought it was just a blueprint, so he didn't take it seriously. After all, there were too many similar blueprints in the American military. He would receive several copies every year. There were even UFO, spaceship manufacturing, space elevator structure, and other imaginative ideas. He would usually store these ideas in the Jieda Technologies database, but he wouldn't put them into practice. After all, they had no practical value. However, after reading the report, Eric, who had a background in scientific research, was completely shocked. This was because Tesla's mecha preliminary design was too complete. The combination of the various systems, the construction and combination of the parts, everything was unbelievable to him. He had some understanding of Tesla as a research maniac. Although he was very talented and capable in scientific research, this report increased Eric's evaluation of Tesla by a few times. In order to verify the feasibility of this plan, Eric studied Tesla's report overnight. The next day, he used the simulation program in the laboratory to put it into practice. In the end, other than a few key points that were not smooth, the construction and operation of the mecha model were very successful. At that moment, Eric had a crazy idea in his mind. There was a fatal point in this report that Tesla had also personally marked out. It was that the construction of the mecha's core power source could not be done with current technology. It was even a question whether such a small core that could release a huge amount of kinetic energy existed on Earth. Unfortunately, Tesla wrote a line at the bottom of the report. Perhaps when we can perfectly control nuclear fusion technology, the mecha can only become a reality. This key problem might be an insurmountable problem for the American military, but it wasn't for Eric. This was because they had mastered spiritual power. After decades of attempts, they had become more and more proficient in using spiritual power. They even spent a few years to create a spirit core that was condensed from spiritual power. Eric already had the idea of building a mecha after seeing the small core that could release a powerful force mentioned by Tesla in the report. Things that were impossible for the U.S. military were completely possible for him. However, before building the mecha, there was still a big problem. After all, the report provided by Tesla was incomplete. Although it could be run on the simulator, there would still be many problems. If you wanted to try to build a mech, then Tesla would be the key. So Ari had a crazy idea to hijack Tesla. If they failed and the U.S. military found out that it was them who kidnapped important researchers from the hands of the U.S. military, they would have to bear a devastating blow. However, Eric also knew that if they succeeded, the future of the Jetta Technology Company would not just be a simple global technology business company. By then, they would be strong enough to compete with the most powerful countries in the world. Just like the umbrella in the movies, it controlled the power that everyone feared. From the moment he discovered spiritual energy, Eric believed that he could change the world. Therefore, he didn't want to miss this opportunity. As long as he had a combat mecha, he believed that he would have a bright future. Although this idea was too crazy, it was also too tempting. After struggling with his thoughts, Eric finally decided to carry out this hijacking plan. This was his ambition. He, who had mastered spiritual energy, had already mastered the method to prolong life. Therefore, what matched this was supreme power. With the combination of the two, he felt that he would become the master of the new world. U.S. military, ex-research military base. The military base that occupied an area of 234 hectares was surrounded by rings of barbed wire. Every 20 meters, there would be a fully armed soldier patrolling the area. Inside the base, there was a 3,000 meters long airstrip that led straight to the cliff at the end. The entire base could be said to be heavily guarded. Outsiders could not enter at all. In front of the main entrance of the base, there was a red warning sign that said, "Military Restricted Area, no entry." This military base was different from other military bases in the U.S. Its main purpose was to research and manufacture new weapons. Other than protecting the safety of the researchers, the existence of these soldiers was also to prevent reporters and spies from approaching. After all, the value of the information inside the base was huge. If it was leaked, it would be a huge loss for the U.S. military. At this moment, dozens of heavy trucks with military license plates drove over from afar, stirring up sand and dust. After the captain of the soldiers stationed at the gate saw the heavy military trucks in the distance through the telescope, his expression became very serious. He took out his walkie-talkie and told the soldiers to be on guard. Then, he began to report to the superiors inside the base. In this military base, members from other units would usually inform the superiors of the base one day in advance before their arrival. Their superiors would also inform them in advance. Therefore, the sudden appearance of dozens of military trucks made them vigilant. The soldiers stationed here were all elite warriors who had been carefully selected. Their alertness was very high, and before their superiors could reply, they quickly gathered at the main entrance. At this moment, the walkie-talkie rang. "Avast! No units have applied to enter the X-Research base." Hearing this, the captain of the patrol immediately pressed the alarm button in front of him. The loudspeaker on the watchtower immediately started to sound the alarm. "You have entered a restricted military area. Please leave immediately. Otherwise, we will take coercive measures against you. You have entered a restricted military area. Please leave immediately. Otherwise, we will take coercive measures against you." Facing the warning from the direction of the military base, the row of black heavy trucks did not slow down. Instead, they sped up. Seeing this scene, the station soldiers did not hesitate at all. They decisively opened the safety of their guns and pressed the alarm button inside the base. Then, these soldiers quickly gathered in front of the gate, lined up in a row, and began to shoot. However, these heavy trucks were all bulletproof vehicles. Ordinary bullets could not penetrate them at all. "Lift column." Seeing that the heavy trucks were getting closer, the captain hurriedly shouted at the soldiers on the watchtower. After the soldier pressed the switch of the lift column, rows of spikes rose from the ground. Suddenly, the black trucks in front were sent flying by the spikes and rolled a few meters after landing on the ground. At the same time, the alarm inside the base sounded. This made all the soldiers stationed inside nervous. They began to quickly gather. Then they walked out of the base and gathered outside. At the same time, the screen of the main control room inside the base was adjusted to the main entrance. Intrusion detected. Request to use missiles. After seeing that there was indeed an intrusion, the correspondent who was observing the screen immediately sent an application to the highest-ranking superior of the base. Approved. After being authorized to use missiles, the missile compartment in the base automatically opened. After loading, the barrel turned and locked onto the invading vehicles outside. Fire. Flames soared into the sky, and several small missiles rose into the sky. Boom, boom, boom. After this round of bombing, all the black heavy trucks were blown up before they could get close to the base. None of them survived. Target has been annihilated. Do you want to check the situation? Over. The captain of the soldiers at the gate reported after seeing that all the heavy trucks had been blown up. Wait for 5 minutes and observe the situation. Check again after confirming that there is no danger. While everyone in the base was focusing on the outside world, a figure quietly sneaked into the base. The figure hid in a corner inside the base and asked in a low voice, "I have successfully sneaked in. Where's the target?" "Ha! It's so convenient to be invisible. Number 10, go to the 14th floor underground now. That's where Tesla is." At this time, a man's reply was heard in the headset. Number 10, who was in an invisible state, nodded. Then he sneaked away again. It had to be said that even though the soldiers stationed inside the military base had gone out, it was still not easy to sneak in here. Even the elevator that went underground required fingerprint and pupil verification. Fortunately, before the invasion, their higher-ups in the military had already transmitted all the information of the entire base to the underground headquarters of the Jetta Corporation. In fact, they had a complete grasp of the internal situation, including the identification tools. It could be said that the invasion from the outside world was just a feint. Being invisible was the key. After all, the strength of the American military was there. Although they had the ability to crush the American military in terms of individual soldiers, there was still a huge gap in a head-on battle. In a laboratory on the 14th floor underground. In this personal laboratory that belonged to Tesla, there were many of the world's top scientific research instruments. The ground was littered with messy manuscripts, giving the whole laboratory a messy feeling. At this time, Tesla was lying in the gaming chamber, playing the game. Ever since he tried playing the game, Tesla could be said to be completely addicted to it. Not only did the many high-tech products in the game fascinate him, but he was also surprised by the various complex settings such as the habits of the creatures, racial relationships, and so on. It could be said that the more he played, the more surprised he became. Now, What Tesla wanted most was to meet the team behind the game and ask them for confirmation of the many doubts in his heart. Tesla believed that talking to them would definitely solve the many troubles in his heart. It could be said that the team behind the battle expedition was not only a monster in the eyes of the players, but also an incredible team in Tesla's eyes. At this time, Tesla was slowly approaching a tall building in a northern corner of the Blue Valley ruins in the game. After seeing that the distance shown on the data panel had reached the attack range, he immediately activated the Battle Fortress mode and aimed all the cannons at the top of the tall building. Fire! Suddenly, the cannons roared, and countless missiles dragged long trails of flames toward the top of the tall building. Boom! The top of the tall building was blown up, and Tesla also received a game notification at this time. Player Emily has been killed by you. Tesla smiled when he heard the game notification. During this period of time, Tesla, who was unconvinced, had sought revenge on Emily several times, but he was killed by long-range snipers every time. However, during this period of time, Tesla had also found Emily's weakness, which was her extremely weak defense. It could be said that she could not withstand a round of his bombardment at all. And that was exactly what happened. This time, after taking a huge detour to sneak up on Emily, a single round of normal firepower was enough to instantly kill her. Tesla, who thought that he had found Emily's weakness, smiled happily. The game has been disconnected. Exiting the game. At this time, Tesla suddenly noticed that the game screen had gone dark. After switching back to reality, he saw that the lid of the gaming chamber was slowly opening. At this time, Number 10, who was wearing a tight suit, smiled and patted his shoulder. Follow me. Where to? Tesla was stunned. To build a mech. Chapter 314. America, Jetta Science and Technology Experimental Headquarters. In a small room of 20 square meters on the 18th floor underground, Tesla held a cup of coffee in his hand and kept looking around. His heart was filled with anxiety. He was actually kidnapped. Moreover, he was kidnapped from the heavily guarded military base X. Everything seemed unbelievable, yet it really happened. What made Tesla even more incredulous was the fact that he actually saw superpowers. Not only could the man who called himself Number 10 turn invisible, but he could also make Tesla invisible as well. Just like that, he brought Tesla out of the military base X. After being brought into this underground base, Tesla also found many nutrition chambers where experimental subjects were placed along the way. All of this made Tesla realize that he should have come to some underground human experimental organization. Coupled with the superpowers that Number 10 displayed earlier, Tesla even suspected that Number 10 superpowers were created here. However, other than fear, Tesla felt an inexplicable excitement in his heart. He had already guessed why they wanted to kidnap him. As one of the most capable researchers in the United States, his value was limited to this. At that moment, the door suddenly opened and a man in a black coat came in. He held a document in his hand and wore a pair of gold-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose, making him look very refined. After closing the door, Eric sat down in front of Tesla and smiled. I thought we'd meet, but I didn't expect it to be in this way. Still, it's an honor to meet you, Mr. Tesla. I'm Eric. Eric extended his hand as he spoke. Tesla was a little reserved. He extended his hand and shook Eric's hand, then asked, "What's your purpose in kidnapping me?" Hearing that, Tesla smiled. Mr. Tesla, I know you very well, and I know what you want. Didn't you join the American military because they can provide you with a huge amount of funding so that you won't be unable to display your talents in scientific research due to the lack of various resources? Tesla was stunned when he heard that. He had to admit that this was indeed the reason he accepted the invitation from the American military. However, he had never told anyone about this idea, so he did not know how this man who called himself Eric knew about it. We're the same kind of people. I'm the same as you. The same kind of people. Tesla was stunned. Eric nodded. I think you've already met Number 10. He's one of my outstanding works. Hearing that, Tesla had a horrified expression on his face. You're saying that you guys created this superpower? Eric smiled and nodded. He's just one of them. I have even more outstanding works. I think you will see them in the future. Then why did you call me here? I'm not familiar with human research, so I might not be able to help you. At this time, Tesla's mind was full of doubts. Although he was not involved in human research, he was still curious about superpowers. However, he was most concerned about the purpose of kidnapping him. I've studied your mech preliminary design report very carefully. I used to think that I was the most talented person, but I don't think so anymore because I think that you're as good as me. You're really a rare genius. Looking at Tesla, a hint of fanaticism flashed in Eric's eyes. You've planted people in the military. Tesla suddenly realized something. After all, this report had just been submitted, but now this non-military personnel had actually obtained his report. There was clearly something fishy going on. That's not important, is it? Mr. Tesla, I can provide all your research and development expenses here. I want to complete this special honor of creating a mech with you and create a brand new era of technology with you. Eric said with a slightly fanatical tone. Tesla fell into silence after hearing that. During the conversation with Eric, Tesla realized that he was actually persuaded. He also realized that Eric really understood him. However, he still shook his head and chose to refuse. Since you've read my report, then you should know that with our current technology, it's impossible to develop an energy core that could drive a mech. A mech without an energy core is like a human without a heart. No matter how strong your body is, it's just an empty shell. Ha ha ha, Mr. Tesla, how could I not have considered this when I specially invited you here? If I tell you now that I've already created such an energy core, would you believe me? Upon hearing this, Tesla was shocked. He suddenly stood up and asked, Is what you said true? No matter how much you say, it's not as good as seeing it with your own eyes. Come with me. Eric placed the mech manufacturing preliminary design report in his hands on the table, then stood up and walked to the door. He turned around and glanced at Tesla, who was still in shock. Seeing that, Tesla hurriedly followed. At that moment, his heart was filled with excitement. If someone had told him that such an energy core had already been invented, he would have scoffed at it. However, today he had even seen a person with superpowers. Coupled with the confidence that Eric displayed, Tesla was already more than half convinced. He followed Eric to the elevator. Then, the two of them took the elevator to the 32nd floor underground. As soon as they walked out of the elevator, a row of security personnel stationed with guns looked over. However, after seeing Eric, these security personnel were very respectful and decisively dispersed to make a path. After passing through a few security rooms, Tesla followed Eric to an airtight metal room. After a series of identity verification, the door opened. Instantly, a rich fragrance assailed his nostrils. After taking a deep breath, Tesla felt that his body seemed to be much lighter. Filled with curiosity, Tesla followed Eric into the room. Immediately, his gaze was attracted by the stones that were placed in the glass cover and were shining with a soft luster. Is this the energy core? Tesla's voice seemed to be trembling. The energy dissipated through the glass cover was already so shocking. At that moment, Tesla completely believed what Eric had said. At that moment, Eric walked to a spirit stone, picked up a data report placed in front of it, and handed it to Tesla with a smile. Tesla received it with trembling hands. He glanced at the title of the report, Spirit Energy Core, then began to read. The more he looked at it, the more surprised Tesla became. It was only at this moment that he realized that there was actually an element called spiritual energy on Earth, which was extremely powerful. According to the data report, the energy produced by such a spirit stone core could supply the entire NYC with electricity for a day. How did you do it? After flipping through the report, Tesla suddenly raised his head and asked with bloodshot eyes. At that moment, his heart was filled with excitement and doubt, because he was very clear about the great impact the discovery of this new element would have on the development of the times. Someone found a dilapidated ancient book from an unknown era during archaeology. After testing it, it was found that this ancient book had a history of at least 3 million years, which is what we think of as the Paleolithic Age. Obviously, history is far from as simple as we understand it. In order to figure out the reason, I bought this ancient book and personally translated it. Although the result was not very ideal, I learned about the existence of spirit energy from it. This is a magical element that can help creatures evolve and can even keep us young forever. Naturally, I didn't believe it at that time. I thought it was a book with religious overtones, but I still did a lot of experiments for it. After experiencing countless failures, I actually managed to capture a weak trace of spirit energy. From that moment on, I knew that I would change the world. Upon hearing that, Tesla's face revealed an expression of admiration. At that moment, he did not think that Eric was arrogant. After understanding it, he felt that spirit energy was indeed an element that could change the world. How about it, Mr. Tesla? Are you willing to go forward with me? I can give you things that the U.S. military can't, and I know you better than the U.S. military. We can be friends. At that moment, Tesla was completely moved. Eric had shocked him too much. Even though Tesla knew that this might be a road of no return, his restless heart still told him that he wanted to follow Eric and complete a feat that could change the world. This might be the greatest creation of his life. Mr. Eric, I'm willing to join you. Upon hearing that, a smile appeared on Eric's face. In fact, he knew that Tesla would agree because he knew Tesla and understood what he desired. After that, Eric brought Tesla to visit the many technological products in the laboratory that relied on spirit energy, which shocked Tesla again and again. In the end, Eric brought Tesla into his office. The two of them began to discuss Tesla's preliminary mecha design plan. Both of them were top scholars with unique insights in the field of science and technology. It could be said that the more they talked, the more they got along. At that moment, Tesla had already regarded Eric as his bosom friend. He even felt that Eric was better than him in some aspects. As they chatted, the topic changed to the origin of the idea of mecha manufacturing. Tesla did not hide anything and told Eric about the game Battle Online. Upon hearing the 4 words Battle Online, Eric's expression suddenly froze. Eric was not familiar with the game Battle Online, but he was not a stranger to it either. Recently, one of the main products produced by the Jitta Technology Company, the gaming chamber, suffered a huge loss in sales because of this game. However, Eric did not specifically understand the game Battle Online. After all, to him, it was just a game. Although he was the behind-the-scenes controller of the Jitta Technology Company, he basically did not ask about the business affairs. He only cared about the achievements in the field of science and technology. However, it was different to know about this game from Tesla. Battle Online had already piqued his curiosity. You found inspiration in the game? Eric asked curiously. It's not inspiration. The game already has a complete design plan. It's so detailed that it can even build a perfect mecha. My design plan was originally based on the design in the game and improved on the materials in reality. Oh, a game company can actually have this kind of capability? Eric was very surprised. You can go and experience it. You definitely won't be disappointed. I even suspect that the behind-the-scenes team of this game is like you guys, a very powerful underground organization. Eric frowned slightly. A mysterious underground organization. After pondering for a moment, Eric stood up and said, "Let's go. Let's go. I can't wait to see it." Tesla nodded immediately. After knowing Eric's capability, he believed that Eric would be as fascinated by this game as he was. Moreover, with Eric's help, his research and development in the game would definitely be smoother. Subsequently, the two of them took the elevator to the recreational area on the 2nd floor of the base. With the help of the staff, they lay down in the gaming chamber and clicked on the game Battle Online. At that moment, a notification suddenly appeared. Game is incompatible. Unable to run. Chapter 3:15. Eric and Tesla were dumbfounded by the notification. They then chose to exit the gaming chamber respectively. Tesla had been using the Black Sea Corporation's gaming chamber provided directly by the military. Naturally, he did not know that the gaming chamber produced by the Jitta Technology was not compatible with this game. He thought that there was a problem with the game. However, Eric suddenly remembered that Battle Online was not compatible with their gaming pods. He also remembered that due to the incompatibility problem, the current CEO of the Jitta Technology Company had come to him to complain about it, hoping to get his help. However, Eric did not take it seriously at that time, and even sent the CEO away impatiently. This was because Eric did not care about such things and could not be bothered. After all, The Jetta Technologies gaming chamber was just something that he had casually developed while researching the use of spiritual energy. However, Eric felt that Battle Online Corporation's actions were a slap in the face. After all, he was the one who developed the gaming chamber. After a moment of silence, Eric asked the staff to entertain Tesla. Then, he quickly rushed to his studio on the 48th floor underground. After entering the studio, Eric changed into a set of work clothes. After all, he was still very serious about scientific research. He would definitely change into work clothes every time he worked. After everything was ready, he came to the main control panel and entered a series of codes. The base's mainframe was activated. Then, he opened the search software and typed in the words Battle Online. Then, he clicked on the first official website link and downloaded Battle Online into the mainframe. What Eric had to do next was to crack the game. Relying on the mainframe's analysis, the data package of Battle Online was continuously peeled off. As time passed, half an hour had passed. The 800 megabyte data package was still being peeled off layer by layer, as if there was no end to it. Eric was dumbfounded. Logically speaking, an 800 megabyte data package could be cracked in a few seconds. After all, the mainframe's computing power was extremely powerful. However, the data package had not been cracked even after such a long time. Eric realized that something was wrong. Just as he was about to use another method to crack it, the notification of a successful crack suddenly popped up on the screen. Seeing that he had succeeded, Eric's face instantly revealed a smile. He reached out and clicked on the cracked internal file. However, at this moment, an image popped up on the main control panel screen. Then, a piece of music sounded and 7 Calabash brothers appeared on the screen. "Hey, monster, return my grandpa to me." Eric was stunned as he looked at the 7 Calabash brothers fighting with the monsters on the screen. Eric, who had realized that he had been tricked, immediately cut off the screen of the main control console. Then, he decisively erased Battle Online from the main control console. At this moment, Eric felt that his pride was being challenged once again. After a moment of silence, he opened the communication device on the console and called the CEO of the Jetta Technology Company. After the call connected, Eric said coldly, "Help me buy 10 Black Sea Corporation gaming cabins and send them over as soon as possible." Then, Eric hung up the phone without waiting for a reply. On the other side, the CEO of the Jetta Corporation was also at a loss. He could not understand why the boss behind the scenes wanted the Black Sea Corporation's gaming cabin when they had better functions. On Lu Wu's side, he was cooking dinner in the kitchen while Bailey was knocking on the bowl with her chopsticks outside to remind him to hurry up. She was hungry. It was as if a reader was urging him to update. After a while, seeing that knocking on the bowl to urge him to eat was ineffective, Bailey rested her chin on one hand and leaned weakly on the dining table. She looked like she would starve to death if she did not eat. Then, her body leaned against the back of the chair and slid down slowly. She changed her posture several times in a row. When she saw that dinner was not served yet, Bailey's mouth gradually puffed up, looking very angry. At this moment, the artifact's warning appeared. "The game is being cracked." Bailey was instantly energized when she saw the artifact's warning. However, she did not panic at all. After all, the current level of technology was unable to crack the game installation package that was bound to the artifact. Bailey could not help but chuckle when she thought about how Lu Wu put in the animation of the Teletubbies when the U.S. military cracked the game installation package. After some thought, she went to Lu Wu's computer and downloaded a video of the Calabash brothers. Then, she transferred it through the artifact. She then returned to the dining table with a serious face and continued to knock on the bowl to urge him to eat. Baki, the border of the void ocean. A huge ferocious beast came from the west. It crossed the border of the ocean and entered the void ocean. Roar. After entering the void ocean, the ferocious beast let out a roar toward the sky. Soon, Tao Wu's silhouette appeared not far away. It was heading toward the ferocious beast at an extremely fast speed. When the two ferocious beasts approached each other, the imagined battle did not happen. Instead, they raised their bodies and stared at each other. "Tao Wu, what happened to little Kuan?" Looking at Haimeng's giant beast, Tao Wu sighed. He did not hide anything and told Hai Ming everything that happened to little Kun. Roar. After listening to Tao Wu's explanation, Hai Ming suddenly leaped from the surface of the sea and swung his tail at Tao Wu, smashing him into the water. How did you become father? Little Kun signed the sea hegemony contract as soon as he was born. He will die. Hai Ming was furious. It's not the time for the contract yet. Little Kun still has a chance. Tao Wu quickly explained. Chance? He must challenge Kuelong within a year after he becomes an adult. This chance is practically non-existent. Even you and I can't fight Kuelong's strength, let alone little Kun. Hai Ming's eyes were bloodshot. His tail kept lashing at the surface of the water. He was extremely agitated. Calm down. We have to talk to Kuelong. Tao Wu knew that he was in the wrong. After all, it was under his management that something went wrong. The sea hegemony contract was signed under the witness of the underworld sea god. We have no right to interfere. It's useless even if we find Kuelong. He won't be able to break the contract. Hai Ming glared at Tao Wu coldly and said through gritted teeth. There's another way, Tao Wu said as a murderous glint flashed across his eyes. Hai Ming was stunned. He immediately knew what Tao Wu was trying to do. I heard that Kuelong is about to break through to the godly state. He's too powerful. So what? As long as he hasn't broken through, we can definitely kill him if we work together. Although he knew that it would be dangerous, little Kun was still a child. Tao Wu could not care less at this moment. The anger in Hai Ming's heart gradually faded as he gazed at the resolute Bayan. After a moment of silence, he said, I have an idea too. After a moment of silence, he said, What? Help Kuelong break through to the godly state. As long as he becomes a godly state, his position as the overlord of the sea will naturally cease to exist. The sea hegemony contract will also be broken. It's too difficult to become a godly state. It's even more difficult than killing him. Tao Wu's eyes were filled with doubt. We have no grudges with Kuelong. Everything was caused by little Kun. However, we have to first ask Kuelong how confident he is in breaking through to the godly state. We can't take that step unless it's absolutely necessary. Otherwise, our actions will indirectly violate the rules of the sea hegemony competition. It will bring us great trouble. Tao Wu sighed when he heard that. However, he still nodded. Then, the two of them sped toward the Kuelong Ocean. Chapter 316. Beiki, the Mansion of the Dead. Recently, the peaceful life of the Beiki players was broken. The reason was the land of the 9 luminaries. After many negotiations and waiting, His Excellency 9 luminaries finally couldn't sit still anymore. He sent a messenger to deliver an ultimatum to the players. Or submit sincerely, or declare war. Naturally, the players wouldn't surrender again. The strategy of killing Yu Yao might work once, but the brothers of the 9 luminaries would definitely find out the players' problem the second time. Hence, there was no longer any suspense about the start of the war. Today, the messenger came again and gave the players 3 days to consider. If they still didn't surrender, they would have no choice but to declare war. After half a year, the players had already regarded the land of Beiki as their home. Of course, they wouldn't want to give it up. Although this was bad news, it also gave the Beiki players, who had been living in peace for a long time, a sense of urgency. The improvement of their strength had once again become their focus. The growth of the players was undoubtedly rapid. However, compared to the forces that had been in the underworld for tens of thousands of years, they had no other advantages except for the number of people and resurrection. It could be said that the odds of winning the war with the land of the 9 luminaries were slim. However, the players didn't give up. While discussing how to fight, they also began to think of ways to improve their strength. At this stage, the 10,000 alchemists in Beiki could already successfully refine medicine. Although the success rate wasn't very high, many of the special medicines and permanent attribute-enhancing pills they produced could indeed improve the strength of the players. However, due to the small production, it was only a drop in the bucket for the huge number of Beiki players. It was obviously unrealistic to rely on the alchemists to improve the overall strength of the players. Now that the whole of Beiki was under the control of the players, there were only a few areas that could be used for leveling up. The beginner monster farming areas like the Ghost Mountains could no longer satisfy the development of the Beiki players. As for the Underworld Sea Realm, due to the urgency of the war with the Sea King, all the new Death Clan warriors were transferred to the Kuelong Ocean. The players' original training spots and soul coin spots in the Void Ocean had also disappeared. Now, if the players wanted to speed up their development and break the bottleneck, the only way was to expand their territory. Even if His Excellency 9 luminaries didn't declare war, the players would take the initiative to declare war, but at a faster pace. Naturally, Lu Wu was aware of the development problems of the Beiki players. After some consideration, he decided to start a life profession, the blacksmith, that would be very helpful in the war. The starting point of being an artificer was not high, but mastering it was no easier than being an alchemist. At the stage where the war with the land of the 9 luminaries was about to start, the players could ponder on their own and build war machines that would be extremely helpful in the war. This would also greatly help the players' growth as blacksmiths. Compared to the alchemist profession that required a mature and steady state of mind and proficient techniques, blacksmiths required creativity more. It was just like the first blacksmith in Beiki who invented the rune masters. He combined his imagination and creativity to create the growth model of the rune master system. There were also siege weapons, special effects equipment, traps, the creation of new runes, and so on. It was easy to become an artificer, but it was extremely difficult to become proficient in it. The things that one had to learn were very complicated, and they could not be formed in a short period of time. Previously, Lu Wu did not consider opening up this character class because he was afraid that the players would slow down their own growth due to the complicated casting system. After all, Lu Wu was in dire need of soul coins at that time, and the players' energy was still directed towards killing monsters and leveling up. However, Lu Wu felt that it was time to open up this life class to the public. After the official war with the land of the 9 luminaries, Lu Wu believed that the growth of the players would only speed up and would not be slowed down by the variety of life classes. After Lu Wu had confirmed the implementation of this plan, a game notification rang in the minds of the Beiki players. Server announcement. The life class, Blacksmith, is officially open. All players can learn more about it in the new function, Life Classes, and accept a class change mission. There is no limit to the number of blacksmiths this time. The top 10,000 players with outstanding performance will receive a 1-month training course in blacksmithing organized by Tonghua. The appearance of a new life class was always a pleasant surprise. After the last intense competition for the alchemist profession, the players have been looking forward to the second opening of the life class. Although the alchemist profession had not been opened up this time, the players were still excited about the unlimited number of new life classes. Many players immediately opened up the system interface and chose the new function, Life Classes. Suddenly, a long list of life classes appeared. Life Classes, Alchemist, closed a talented life class that uses proficient techniques to mix the medicinal properties of various spiritual materials and condense them into medicines or elixirs, increasing the effects by several times. Blacksmith opened a creative life class that uses imagination as a hammer to forge all kinds of auxiliary equipment. Decomposing Master closed an observational life class that can turn waste into treasure by stripping different elements from equipment and elixirs. Demonic Chef closed a skillful life class that is good at using various ingredients, meat, plants, spiritual materials, etc., to cook dishes that can provide buffs. Winemaker, Enchanter. The interface with 28 life classes dazzled the players and made them extremely excited. However, other than the blacksmith, the other life classes could not be clicked on, which made the players feel regretful. However, the existence of these life classes also gave the players a great sense of anticipation. Looking at the construction of Battle Online being perfected step by step, they also felt a sense of joy that their home was getting better and better. After the players clicked on the blacksmith interface, a game notification popped up. Do you want to activate the blacksmith class change mission? This mission will be ranked by points. The top 10,000 players in the server will receive a 1-month training course from the blacksmith mentor, Tongwa. The first round of the blacksmith class change mission. Forge iron, 72 hours. Mission description. After activating this mission, the player will receive the entry-level forging weapon, 100 forging hammer, casting furnace, and a blacksmith's beginner's handbook. The player can follow the method recorded in the handbook to forge spiritual ores into spiritual iron. The higher the grade of the spiritual ore, the harder it is to forge it into iron. The higher the grade of the spiritual ore, the higher the quality of the forged iron. Mission evaluation method. The first round of the mission will be completed after the player has forged 5 pieces of spiritual iron. The evaluation will be based on the quality of the spiritual iron. Players who are not satisfied with the forged spiritual iron can choose to continue forging before the end of the mission. Only the 5 pieces with the highest quality will be evaluated. The second round of the blacksmith class change mission. Melt iron, 48 hours. Mission description. After activating this mission, the player can follow the method recorded in the blacksmith's beginner's handbook to melt the spiritual iron obtained in the first round of the mission, remove the impurities, and improve the quality of the spiritual iron. Mission evaluation method. The evaluation will be based on the final quality of the integrated spiritual iron. The third round of the blacksmith class change mission. Forge iron, 48 hours. Mission description. Use the spiritual iron obtained in the first 2 rounds to forge an item. It could be a weapon, equipment, auxiliary machinery, and so on. The blacksmith's handbook provides the beginner equipment template. You can also choose to create your own new item. Mission evaluation method. The evaluation will be based on the final quality of the forged item. In the case of forging multiple items, only the one with the highest analysis evaluation will be selected. Additional points for innovation. Although it was an open-ended life class with no limit on the number of players, it was obviously not as easy to change the class as the players thought. All the players showed an expression of, "I knew it," when they saw the description of the mission. Watermelon_Taro, I really have to give it to Battle Online. There was a life class like the blacksmith class in the games I played in the past, but in that game, you only needed to gather the materials and click to forge the equipment automatically. Then, it depended on your luck to forge the equipment. Normally, the higher the proficiency, the higher the chance of forging a good equipment. But Battle Online actually made us use our hammers to forge the equipment. This means that the proficiency here is completely determined by our forging skills. This is too real. It's so real that I want to kill someone, covering face. Shueli_the_strongest. I was shocked when I saw the blacksmith's handbook in the channel just now. It's 3 times thicker than a dictionary, covering face. I would like to ask the evildoers if it's really good for you to treat the players this way. Aren't you afraid that we'll find your address? Bleeding knife. JPG. Assassin_Creed. The evildoers want us to be all around? That's even more demanding than my parents. Thank you, Gritting Teeth. Crayon_Shinchan. The evildoers. You guys don't know anything. How are you worthy of being the players of Battle Online? Go study hard. Laughing emoji. Pay-to-win_player. _blacksmith_shop. Young man, are you applying for a job? Player, arrogant face. This is my blacksmith level certificate in Battle Online. Name your price. Waving_battle_flag_replying to pay-to-win_player. As long as you play Battle Online well, you won't have to worry about not having a job. Invincible_loneliness. Covering face. I feel like an idiot smithing and refining potions in the game, but my heart is telling me that I must get into the top 10,000. Peppa_Boar. That's amazing. The evildoers are really playing a big game of chess. They're forcefully raising the overall quality of the players. No one else can do this. But since you guys have spent so much time and effort writing the beginner's handbook of blacksmithing, I'll reluctantly change my class. Also, let me remind everyone that this class seems to be very tiring. Please don't change your class. Let me do it. Laughing emoji. Roasting_Chong_ while _hugging_Jade_hair. Smithing is a tough and rough job. Please don't force yourselves. Let me do it. That's enough. I'm going to study. Just as Luwu had expected, The forum was filled with complaints. However, complaints were just complaints. There was no other way to change their class. Hence, the Bakey players once again immersed themselves in learning. With the experience of being an apothecary as an example, the players had no doubt that a life class would be a great help to their growth. On this day, Bakey was filled with players carrying hammers and books, studying hard. Chapter 3:17. Do you think your father is an idiot? When your father was young, he also bought a virtual reality helmet to play games. This thing is too much of a waste of time. What kind of playthings are inside? It's all fake. Under Lin Nua's guidance, Lin Tai opened the profession interface and clicked on the blacksmith option. After confirming that he had started the mission, a game notification suddenly appeared. After stepping out of the gaming chamber, Lin Nua glanced outside the window and saw that his father was sitting in a rocking chair outside the house, leisurely basking in the sun. Thus, he hurriedly turned around and went downstairs. Chapter 3:18. This craftsmanship cannot be lost in our hands. This was what Lin Tai often said to Lin Nua. As a father, how could he not know what his child was thinking? In fact, he was the same when he was young. He felt that since this craftsmanship had been eliminated by time, then what was the point of persisting? At that time, Lin Tai also felt that his father was too pedantic. In this new era, he insisted on old things and would never choose to improve. However, as he grew up and came into contact with this industry more, Lin Tai's thoughts gradually changed. He also understood why his father persisted. The traditional craftsmanship that carried the essence of Chidragon's traditional culture had been passed down for thousands of years. This was also the reason for its existence. This was because behind every piece of work was condensed the vicissitudes of life and the vicissitudes of life. To put it in a big way, it was a kind of persistence and adherence to the tradition. To put it in a small way, it was the spirit of the ancestors passed down from generation to generation. 100 years ago, 1,000 years ago, his ancestors were waving the iron hammer just like him now. They were drenched in sweat amidst the sputtering sparks and forged the thrill and excitement of life in the occasional flash of inspiration. This was like a story that was written from the moment it was passed down. It was passed down from generation to generation and continued to be perfected. Lin Tai, who came to his senses, took the initiative to learn the craftsmanship from that moment on. Affection could be applied to people over time, and it was also applied to Lin Tai and his craftsmanship. The more he understood, the more he loved it. When the inheritance was no longer a burden, Lin Tai took over the baton from his father and began to write his own story. This was Lin Tai, a person who seemed old-fashioned to Lin Nua, but had the most sincere persistence and dream of the inheritor. Lin Tai once had the idea of promoting this craftsmanship. He had put in a lot of effort for this. His figure could be seen on Weibo, live streaming, and other platforms. However, in this impetuous era, the appreciation for the beauty of traditional craftsmanship had long faded. The result of his hard work made Lin Tai very disappointed and depressed. However, his love for the craftsmanship in his hands had never diminished. However, after coming into contact with Battle Online this time, Lin Tai's originally calm heart was once again ignited with the flame that he once had. Tens of millions of players were learning the craftsmanship here. This was something that Lin Tai dared not imagine before, but now it was possible. Although this was a game, after flipping through the Blacksmithing Beginner's Handbook, Lin Tai knew that these techniques really existed. Just like what Lin Nua said, they could be used in real life. In Lin Tai's eyes, this was an opportunity to bring honor to his ancestors and let people understand the smelting and casting techniques of the Lin clan. After hearing from Lin Nua that there were 10,000 slots for the class change trial this time, Lin Tai only had one thought. He wanted to be number one. But before that, the first thing he needed to do was level up. After continuously leveling for 11 hours in the Ghost Mountain range, Lin Nua was on the verge of tears. Looking at his father, who was still full of energy, Lin Nua really wanted to go to sleep. However, his father did not allow it. "Father, I can't take it anymore. There's still an hour before I'm forced to go offline. How about I take a break first?" Seeing that his father was still looking for monsters, Lin Nuo opened his mouth with a face full of grievance. For Lin Nuo, the beginner monsters in the Ghost Mountain range gave too little EXP. It was not enough to satisfy his growth. His only purpose here was to help Lin Nuo level up. Originally, he wanted his father to guide him through the class change quest, but he did not expect that his memorizing time would be taken away by his father. If it was someone else, Lin Nuo would have already flipped out. However, this was his father. Lin Nuo did not even dare to have the thought of resisting, and could only serve him. There's still an hour before you're forced to go offline. Lin Tai heard this and turned his head to look at Lin Nuo with a frown. Yes, I'm currently using the virtual reality helmet. There's a mandatory game time limit. Lin Nuo said with a face full of anticipation, waiting for his father's permission. Wait a moment. After saying this, Lin Tai went offline in front of Lin Nuo's shocked expression. Around 5 minutes later, Lin Tai came online again and waved the greatsword in his hand. Let's go, continue killing monsters. Father, I only have half an hour of game time left. No problem. Father just went offline and ordered another gaming cabin. It will be delivered directly from the nearby Black Sea warehouse. The smart delivery car will probably arrive in around an hour. Lin Nuo was speechless. At this moment, Lin Nuo really wanted to yell at his father. Playing with things leads to ambition, but he did not dare to. An hour later, the gaming cabin was delivered to their doorstep. The father and son pair went offline and moved the new gaming cabin into Lin Tai's room. When he came online again, Lin Tai used his own gaming cabin. Thinking of his father's furious expression when he bought the gaming cabin, and then looking at his father's swift and decisive purchase, Lin Nuo felt bitter and wronged. He really wanted to imitate his father and yell at him, but he still did not dare to. With the gaming cabin, the 12-hour game time limit naturally did not exist. Next, Lin Nuo brought his father to sweep through the Ghost Mountain range, this beginner leveling area. With Lin Nuo, a level 100+ rune master carrying him, Lin Tai's level sword. After 2 days of killing monsters without rest, Lin Tai finally reached level 25, and it was finally time for him to accept the class change quest. At this moment, Lin Nuo finally let out a sigh of relief, feeling that he was free. Beside him, Lin Tai was also very happy. In these 2 days of leveling, Lin Tai also discovered a surprise in the game, which was that he could feel the improvement of his physical fitness when he leveled up in the game. This made him think of the smelt iron into essence tempering technique recorded in the book. Lin Tai had tried this tempering technique when he was young, but found out that it was very difficult to use in actual forging. Just as he explained to Lin Nuo, this tempering technique required one to have great strength. Without the assistance of modern equipment, it was very difficult to achieve, and if one tried forcefully, it would harm one's body. At this moment, Lin Tai, who was already level 25, clenched his fist and felt the surging strength in his body. He felt that with his current strength, he could definitely try this tempering forging technique. After that, Lin Tai and his father returned to the Mansion of the Dead, preparing to try forging. Confirm to activate the class change quest for the life profession, Forging Master? Yes. After confirming to activate the class change quest, the Forging Book, Forging Hammer, and Smelting Furnace, these 3 beginner items were sent to Lin Tai's backpack. Looking at the quest description, Lin Tai extended his hand towards Lin Nuo. Dad, what are you doing? Lin Nuo asked, puzzled. Spirit ore. Hearing this, Lin Nuo felt a toothache. At this moment, a game notification appeared in his mind, frowny face game notification. Your first round of the Forging Masterclass Change quest has not reached 5 pieces of forged iron due to time exhaustion. Failed. F*CK. In these 3 days, he had been accompanying his father to level up, and had even forgotten to do the quest. At this moment, Lin Nuo's heart ached. Fortunately, this quest could be repeated after a day's cooldown. Otherwise, Lin Nuo felt that he would really go crazy. Looking at his father, Lin Nuo sighed in his heart. He took out all the spirit ore from his backpack and gave it to his father. Dad, I'll give it all to you. If it's not enough, I'll go buy more. Lin Tai nodded, and with an excited expression, he summoned the smelting furnace and began forging for the first time in the game. Looking at his father's busy figure, other than helplessness, Lin Nuo felt even more joy in his heart, because he had already forgotten how long it had been since he saw his father so focused on something. At this moment, Lin Tai seemed to have shed away his old age. His whole body was emitting vitality, and Lin Nuo couldn't help but be stunned. Ding, ding, ding. The sound of hammering was very pleasant to listen to, and also very warm. At this moment, Lin Nuo's mind couldn't help but recall the tall and sturdy figure in his memory, who was bare-chested and sweating by the furnace. Lin Nuo, this old man who was already 30 years old, couldn't help but tear up as he watched from aside. He was very familiar with this kind of attitude. At this moment, Lin Tai was like a dusty, treasured sword that had its dust wiped away and once again displayed its sharp edge. Although many years had passed, it was still as dazzling as before. Lin Tai was very familiar with the smelting technique. He rhythmically hammered the spirit ore, and the sparks that burst forth burned his skin red. However, Lin Tai didn't feel the slightest discomfort, and his eyes were only filled with excitement and nostalgia. After half an hour of hammering nonstop, the impurities were gradually removed, and the shape of the spirit ore continuously shrunk. Ding! After another hammering, a game notification suddenly appeared. Game notification: congratulations on forging 100 skills iron. Using a pair of pliers to pick up the 100 skills iron, Lin Tai's face revealed a trace of a smile. This time, he tried to smelt the spirit ore using the smelt iron into essence method from the blacksmithing introductory book. He didn't expect it to actually succeed. Lin Nuo saw this and curiously used analysis to check the attributes of the spirit ore again. 100 skills iron, level 1. Metal information: level 1 spirit or 100 skills stone formed after being tempered into a level 1 metal material. Material quality: 89. Spirit ores are divided into 1 to 13 levels. After being tempered, the spiritual metal material is divided into 1 to 18 levels. Each level has a quality evaluation of 1 to 100. The metal smelted from a level 13 spirit ore is equivalent to a level 13 metal. In the later stages, it relies on smelting the metal to increase the metal's level and quality. At this time, another panel appeared in front of Lin Tai: frowny face blacksmith profession advancement point list, remaining time: 5 days, 13 hours, 46 minutes. First place, Tian Beiyu, 852 points, completed level 3 mission. Second place, Tao Lin, 753 points, completed level 3 mission. Third place, Zhong Fengyi, 732 points, completed level 3 mission. 9742. Lin Tai, 89 points, level 1 mission stage. Because they were in a team, Lin Nuo also discovered the ranking that appeared on his father's panel. Other than surprise, he was also filled with pride. He was very confident in his father. He knew that with his father's strength, he would definitely be able to charge into the top 10,000. But he didn't think that just by forging the first spirit ore, he would be able to successfully jump into the top 10,000. One had to know that the first mission's evaluation was based on 5 spirit ores, and his father had only forged 1. If he counted the points from the other 4 spirit ores, he felt that his father's points could definitely charge into the top 1,000, or even higher. At this moment, Lin Nuo's heart was filled with anticipation. He felt as if he was witnessing his father's rise. But when Lin Tai saw the ranking, he was very dissatisfied. He immediately picked up his hammer, and while his body was still warm, he began to hammer the second spirit ore again. As time passed, the spirit ores were hammered into spirit ores one by one, and Lin Tai's ranking on the list rose in a straight line. When the 5th spirit ore was completely hammered, Lin Tai's ranking had already reached 587. Compared to the excited Lin Nuo, Lin Tai was very calm, because he only had one thought, and that was to get first place.